Our sim racing time machine takes us back to the beautiful Ardennes forest, circa 1966, for round two of the historic Road Racing Championship, organised by GP Laps and brought to you by the fantastic folk at Simply Race. This will be a 2-hour drive on Belgian public roads with a bit of a twist. It's the Spa Francorchamps you know and love, but not quite as you know it. This is the old 1966 layout, which will be high speed, and every trip through the infamous Master Kink will be a case of who has the most. I'll get my words out eventually. Who's got the most fortitude in the downstairs department? 4+ minutes a lap for 2 hours. Now this is going to be a lot of fun, and to take you through the fun will be me, Aidan Millward, and this week I've got some assistance in the form of Mr. Zach Sweeney. So Zach, you weren't available for Longford, but what around to kick things off for you?
Oh no, yeah, Spa, it's, well, you can't exactly have a historic championship and not come to Spa Francorchamps, can you? But yeah, no, pleasure to be here this week. Fortunately, my cable has decided to, bear with me this week. So yeah, unfortunately for you, Aidan, you've got to deal with me for the next 2 hours. But yeah, no, looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I'm going to get paid less now as a result. But anyway, we have a great race lined up. Pre-qualifying has gone on through the week, and we can bring you some little bit of pre-race data for you. This is the overall drivers' championship standings, which will then get divvied up into class sort of points as well. As you can see, Jake, GP Laps, Richie Axelson, whatever you want to call him, he is currently top after winning that race at Longford from Yoni Symmetry. So it's basically the top 6 from Longford, because we've only had one race, therefore we've only got one set of results to give you. But it all looks nice and pretty now with the GP Laps sort of branding on everything. So you can see the rest of the calendar there as well. Spa, Isle of Man, Dundrod, Targa and Le Mans to finish the season. So there we go, the 5+ litre drivers championship standings, which is basically the top 5 from that class. And then we also have 3 litre and 2 litre as well. So we'll bring those up for you in just a moment. So Rajasu leading the 3+ litre drivers championship standings. And what's great about the 3 and 2 litres is that they can mix with each other as well, which you'll see in a moment when we actually get into the race. But Franek Godrecki, who can't be here today because he's doing some real world racing in his home country today, so very best of luck to him. And then we've got the 2 litre drivers championship standings with Jake Britton leading that, and Reese Gardner, Southpaw racer himself, there in 4th position after a late splash and dash dropped him down the order. So I really can't wait for this. Zach, what are your opinions on what you're going to be seeing here this afternoon?
Honestly, these cars, they're so unpredictable, they're so slidey, a very tricky machine to handle. And of course, this track isn't exactly, it's the historic version. Even the modern version is very difficult in its limited amount of runoff. And now you go to a time or an edition of the circuit where safety wasn't a priority, and it's going to be so tricky. We even saw in qualifying while we were doing some previews of and just having a look at what people were doing. People just, it's so tricky. You go marginally off. The margin for error is so small. You go marginally off, and the car is just like, nah, not happening. And then you go barreling off, and then there's going to be a couple of premature ends to people's races today, I'm sure.
Yeah, you can just see the sort of the kink leading into Stavolo there. There's on the apexes and exits of some of these corners, people's houses, and you can see the stanchions of that bridge as well going through Malmedy Corner, and that sort of building that's sort of just been plopped down there for the actual race and things like that. Like the apex of one of the corners in Sector 3 is somebody's driveway, and it makes you think when you're driving around in the safety of a simulator like rFactor 2 or even like other sims on the market as well. You just think, how did anybody survive around here? Jim Clark hated this place. That's probably why he won so often, because he drove so fast that he just finished before everybody else so he could go home afterwards. But my track map's saying 14 corners over the course of the sort of 8 miles or so that we're going to be running, but I think the bits that everybody's going to be looking out for is that infamous Master Kink, which is just horrendous if you try to take it flat out in qualifying or even in the race.
I've never driven it, so I wouldn't know, but I'm sure I'm going to be in for a nice surprise, nice first time when it comes to that Master King. But yeah, we'll just have to see how it pans out. Of course, these drivers would have done a bit of practice and trying to get themselves used to it, but the race is a whole different ball game. And yeah, as you said with the real world drivers, it does just give you a newfound respect for them to see it, not necessarily firsthand, but to get an idea, get a feel of what they went through. And yeah, wow, it just puts it into perspective really how much of a mammoth task this is going to be. And when you're fighting for a championship as well, it's different when you're just going around hot lapping it for a bit of fun. But you know, those who are expecting to be in the championship fight, they've got something at stake. They can't just mosey on around this circuit and try and get to the end. They've got to fight and actually, you know, put some beams on this car and actually try and go a little bit quick.
Well, the thing is as well is that it is just like real life. One mistake and you are out of the race, because we can see the old sort of Eau Rouge and Radion complex here. It's been reprofiled a few times over the years, but those hay bales do move. And if they end up in the middle of the track and you hit them, you're potentially going into orbit. We're just getting ready now to go into the race, and we have to see who's there on the on pole position and things like that. We've actually got this is just the brilliance of this league and how it's attracted some fun people and who just want to have a bit of fun. The person who was fastest overall in the pre-qualifying to set the 40 cars that, you know, get the honour of running in this race was a person called Charles Leclerc, who set a 4-minute 8.978. That's actually Timotej Andonovski, who's driving under an alias, which actually happened back in those back in those days. But we've also got Nicholas Hillebrand, we've got GP Laps, Juanmi Costa, who was at the previous round, Enzo Fazzi, and Jene Simicic, who are staples of the R Factor 2 leagues over the years. Kasper Stolzer, he's here today driving the Mercedes. He's one of he's the only Mercedes in that class. No, there's a couple of Mercedes in that class. Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. So we're just about to move over into the actual race itself. 40 cars spanning 3 classes. Fastest lap in pre-qualifying, that 4:08.9 by Charles Leclerc. And down in 40th place with a 4-minute 21.1 was Austin Birchfield, who is in the 300 SL. We're going to have some very pretty cars driving around. We've got D-types, we've got Ferraris, Maseratis, Mercs, Gordinis, and a couple of Aston Martin DB3s as well. A very, very pretty car. So we're just waiting for everything to cross over. And we'll probably get the please get off the grid voice coming through our headphones, which is just a part of R Factor 2, and it makes everybody jump. But thank you to everybody who's watching the stream on the Simply Race YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel as well. And yeah, everybody loves a bit of classic car racing. It's attracted quite a lot of people, Zach, with the sort of the amount of people that have wanted to get involved, and to have some of the top R Factor 2 esports guys in as well is only going to boost it a little bit further.
Yeah, they're not something you conventionally see at these classic cars. Usually, GT3 racing is like sort of the main staple of esports racing, obviously single seaters and F1 cars and things like that, but we never really take that nostalgic trip back to the classic cars and things like that. But they are so fun to drive. You might just log on and see, oh, there's a classic car, I'll go and drive it, and then you realize how just fun it is just to get the rear end out and fight the car all the way around a circuit, even if you go on into the classic renditions of those circuits, just to feel how bumpy it is and wrestle the car through. So it's a lot of fun, and it's just something different, isn't it? It's not a championship that we usually see, maybe some one-off events here and there, but never usually a championship. So yeah, it's a unique event, and naturally that will come with a lot of attention.
Yeah, I've driven this layout a few times in Grand Prix Legends and R Factor 2 just to grab some footage for a video. But you have to remember that when you're driving these older cars, you have to forget everything you know about driving cars with downforce, and you have to drive them in a certain way. And I just cannot get my head around these cars. I mean, I'm a rubbish driver anyway, but you have to forget everything you've learned in a Formula One car and then have to relearn everything to drive these. It's kind of like going from rear wheel drive to something like a front wheel drive touring car or something like that. And you think, how do the guys that are actually good at this do this? And you see GP Laps driving around all the time in these things and doing what he does and all that stuff. But I really cannot wait to see what happens here today. You can see the shots with the cars going around in the wet. It is going to be a dry race, so we're not going to have things like, was it 1965, where it just like chucked it down about 2 minutes into the race and basically nobody finished. But I think it would have done quite a lot for the skill levels of some of these drivers, but then we'd probably have no finishes. So just waiting on everything to click over. And I'm just wondering, Zach, who do you think's going to win this? Do you think Jake might take another win, or is it going to be maybe a Ferrari on the top step of the podium?
Who knows? There's a long time between now and the checker flag to decide who wins, but we've got some big names, especially in in the look to the 5 litre class. We've got Jone Simoncic, who, as you were saying, is a staple of R Factor 2 esports. He does a lot of racing, has won probably everything under the sun, so he's going to be up there for sure. But again, it's going to be very tough. It's going to be a race of attrition, really. It's going to be who can be consistent, lay down the laps, and obviously keep that pace up as well. But yeah, just you got to be consistent. You got to put the lap times in. And yes, I'm being really boring and saying, oh, we don't know, it's racing, whatever. But I reckon Jake or Jone probably got a good shot, but I'm willing to be surprised.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. They say it's probably a bit boring that we don't know, but maybe it's a good thing that we don't know, because everybody is going to get surprised. It doesn't matter if you're watching this for the first time on YouTube. You don't care about sim racing. You're just watching this because it seems interesting and things like that. But we don't know. This is probably the most high-profile vintage racing league we've ever had in our Factor 2, thanks to Jake and Simply Race that have been able to put this out for everybody to watch and things like that. And it's when you see cars that you don't know driving around, it's kind of like going to a new town for the first time, or going on holiday somewhere for the first time, and you're just like, this is brilliant. And then you probably go away for a bit, and then you come back and then you go, oh yeah, this is brilliant, and things like that. So it's totally new. So we're just still trying to figure out what's going on with flicking things over into qualifying. I'll probably get something from the broadcast director in my ear very, very shortly, as Lord Haw has just donated US $50. Thank you very much, sir, or my lord, or whatever your title is. So yeah, they're just in warm-up at the minute, so we've got some time to fill. Like I say, just a reminder of what's going on in terms of the of everything. There was pre-qualifying during the week, and then obviously the race here today is completely open to everybody, irrespective of your skill level, just to see if you can get yourself on the grid. I might have to have a cheeky few laps to try and get on the grid for Le Mans, because I've not really driven that layout before. But just a reminder of the overall driver standings: Jacob Desmarais there with 9 points, because it's the old point system. Very realistic this. Simoncic there on 6, Jaime Costa, Jackson Robillard in 4th, Alessandro Pava on 2, and Rujasu there on 1 point. It's a shame that we didn't see the likes of Nico Hillebrand and Enzo Fazzi finish, but they might be able to finish today. Jaguar D-Type, with its disc brakes, probably not going to have them work as well as they would anywhere else, because there's not really any braking zones here.
There's not. It's going to be it's going to be an interesting one. It's a very interesting layout of the circuit, isn't it? It's a lot of it is spent at quite high speeds. So those cars that do favour running towards the top end of their rev range for a lot longer, and of course to have that straight line speed too, are really going to win out, because it's just like, it's one thing around a slightly shorter circuit, it's one thing to have a good car in a straight line, because the the advantage is a little bit it's relative, isn't it? It's a little bit less. But you go to a circuit that's as big as this, like 8.7 miles is this layout, and most of it is straight. That advantage is then just exaggerated, and over the course of 2 hours that is again going to be really stretched out. So yeah, it's going to be difficult for any other car that's not particularly good in a straight line to do very well. But again, even in those sort of situations, you choose a car for a season, you've got to commit to it. You just, you try and limit the damage, especially if you're one of those in the championship hunt.
Yeah, it's this is the other thing about this car selection. It's not like other leagues that you might have seen where these open lobby leagues that you might have seen in like ACC and iRacing and things like that, where it's just that car for that track. So you're racing at Monza and it's all Mercs because they're the fastest in a straight line. You go to somewhere like Hockenheim and it's all Ferraris because they've got the best balance, or McLaren's because they've got the best balance. If you choose the D-Type, you've got to use the D-Type for the entire season. You've got to use so Nico and Jake, they've got to use the D-Type for the whole season if they qualify. Enzo, Jone, Robillard, they've got to choose the Ferrari, Maserati and things like that, as we are underway by the looks of things, and somebody's decided to do their victory donuts right at the start of the race.
Yeah, well, probably the wrong time to do it. Get to the back of the circuit and get to the back of the pack and just try and avoid everything. But they crawl their way up through Hrrc Radion. Everyone going very slowly. I'm not entirely sure if we are actually underway because it's just that Constantina effect of everyone bunching up. But yeah, we can see this is actually Sean Leclerc in that 133. So maybe he's getting a bit confident. You know, he wants to spice things up a little bit towards the start.
Timotej Andonovski tried to, that's actually who he actually is, he's racing under an alias. He's probably trying to warm up his bias ply tyres in the most efficient way possible. He's going to blitz his way back to the front of the field. I mean, that Ferrari is just absolutely rapid. But at the front, it's actually Juanmi Costa who's leading from Enzo Fazzi right now. Simičić in third, Hillebrand in fourth, and Scooby in fifth. And just it's all about momentum and speed as they go through Burnhamville, almost side by side. Just trying not to end up in one of those fields where there's a lot of cows that could potentially ruin your day.
Yeah, you've got to be careful, and they're probably going to run single file for a while because you do have to pick your moments right. As we show, the margin for error is so small, and of course you don't want to battle too hard too early because you want to try and break away from the patch. They've got Jane Simičić right on their tail, and it's so much more difficult to deal with, you know, two other cars than just the one. So maybe for Fazzi just to sit behind might be the better option, or to get through quickly. You can see he is pulling to the left hand side, is going to try and get the move done with the slingshot because obviously the long straights here do lend itself well to just tucking in the slipstream, pulling out, and he has probably got himself a nose ahead, but Costa's going to come back at him, and this is probably going to be the thing that we see for the majority of this race. People just using the slipstream to find a way through, and then people being overtaken can't really have much to say about it.
Yeah, that's the master kink that they've just gone into. This house on the left hand side, that's where Jackie Stewart ended up when he had his monster crash in I think it was like 65 or 66 or whenever it was. But that's the bit that I was talking about, where it's just, you know, drop a gear, dab the brakes, in and out as they come now up the end of the Hollowell Straight towards Stavolo, which is a banked right-hander which can be taken pretty much almost full throttle. Probably not in these things. You can see a little bit of a dab of a brake there from Enzo Fazzi in the Ferrari, who's currently leading this race, the Dutch-Italian. You can also see every car painted in the national colours, so that will be the Portuguese racing colours there for Juanmi Costa there in second place, and obviously British Racing Green for the Jags and things like that. And there's Simičić in the white and gold of his home country, which is Slovenia, I believe. Slovenia, Slovakia, I always get confused between the two, so I do apologise, Yoni, for that one.
He's one of the two. Probably ask Lewis McGlade, he'll definitely know. But I think it's Slovenian. Well, if not, we look incredibly stupid. But hey ho, that's a different story. This is Kasper Stoltz, who at the moment is leading the 3 litres by. Is that margin right? 6.8 seconds? Because if so, fair play.
Well, Kasper Stolzer is also a staple of R-Factor 2 League Racing, so that does sound about right. There appears to be a huge pile-up of some description at the start, as Kasper Stolzer leading there. I believe that is Jake in behind him in the faster class, so I'm assuming at the start Andonovski and Jake may have had a coming together.
Potentially so. That could be what caused it. It might not have been victory donuts. We might have been wrong. Who'd have thought, right? But yeah, no, that might have been the case. Unfortunately, we didn't quite see it, as yeah, there's a bit of confusion. But we've still got the next hour and 56 minutes of action. Of course, it'll be interesting to see the likes of Jake and those trying to fight their way through and battle their way back up. But it is going to be difficult. Of course, as we said, there's not many corners. Most of this track is comprised of straights and little kinks, so it's going to be difficult to actually make that time back up. They're going to have to be really careful and, of course, be really patient with how they do things. But yeah, it's going to be a really tough ask to get themselves back into this fight.
Kasper Stolzer just coming through La Source for the first time, so they've started on the downhill like they do in endurance racing. Nico Hillebrand into the pit lane already, by the looks of things, or maybe that just be a glitch in the system. No, he's just left the pit lane. Oh, it's because they're using the pit lane as part of the racing line. Gotcha. Right, ignore me. So down the hill into Hrrc Radion, out the other side onto the Kemmel Not So Straight towards Lake Com, which will then take them to the left, and then they go around the old public roads as we see Enzo Fazzi being chased by Juanmi Costa up the Kemmel Not So Straight. It looks completely different to how it is today, and there is Lake Com turning to the left, which will then lead them to the small village of Burnhamville.
Yeah, just taking a nice scenic route. That is pretty much all this classic edition of Spa is. But you know, it is a beautiful circuit. A lot of scenery, of course, as they battle their way through the Ardennes and through obviously the village and things like that. So it's a nice track to look at. But when you're barreling down in these sports cars and just trying to chuck the car in and be committed, you don't really have time to look at the scenery. You've got to be focused on the track and certainly cannot get complacent. And complacency actually might be a big killer in this race as well. If you get comfortable and settle into rhythm, let your mind wander, start thinking about what you're going to have for tea when you get to the checkered flag, you might slip up a little bit, and that could be quite dangerous.
It's managed to win a race in ACC because that happened.
Nice.
Hi, Bruno. But yeah, it's like you lose concentration for that split second and dip a tyre onto the grass. You know, your tyres aren't going to get cooled down at this version of Spa, and you're into one of these houses, and that's your race done. And these fences, these telegraph poles, this isn't the Frostbite engine. They're not going to be moving if you hit them. The only thing that will move is those hay bales, and that will destroy your suspension and things like that. As we see the Finnish racing colour, Oskari Kantonen driving the Maserati because of the way the mod is. They're using like fake names, so that Mazzatini, that's going to be a Maserati. As see ya, just passed him like he wasn't even there. I think that's going to be Charles Leclerc that's just overtaken him.
Yeah, that would make sense of how quickly it happened. But yeah, no, Andonovski trying to make quick work of it. Of course, he too is quite experienced with R-Factor 2, of course, does competes in the Virtual Endurance Championship and boasts quite a bit of success in that as well. So he certainly knows his way around endurance race, but this is a completely different kettle of fish. We were talking about how you have to basically learn how to drive again in these cars, but yeah, he certainly doesn't seem too bad.
Well, if you're good, aren't you? It's the annoying part about watching these guys race. They can just hop up, see a bit of hay bale action going off as Liam Dolan in the Aston Martin DB3S appears to be chasing someone in Australian racing colours. Might that be? That might actually be Southpaw Racer in front of him. We're trying to work out where everybody is at the minute. This is new for everybody, so it's trying to work out where everything is on the old timing sheets here. It's almost like how it was back in the day. Everything's on a piece of paper, at least it is for me. But the fastest 3 litre time was done by Rajasu the Gordini. No, that's Longford. Right, ignore me. Let me look at the one that actually says Spa Francorchamps at the top of it. The fastest was Kasper Stolzer. He did a 4:15 in that 3 litre. But then the next fastest car in 11th place overall was Jake Britton in the Maserati at 4:15.6. So the way that these 2 and 3 litre cars can work together and race each other is pretty insane, given the fact that the 5 litres are, well, obviously well ahead of the pack because they've got massive engines behind them, all in front of them.
One of the two, but yeah, no, that is makes sense. But yeah, there's not much difference, I suppose, between the 2s and the 3s. Obviously 1 litre engine capacity difference between them. So yeah, no, it's not completely drastic, but it's interesting how clear Kasper Stolz is to the next 3 litre car, which is Mia Rose in a Gordini, and there's just loads of 2 litres, so they are very, very close, and we might see a bit of interclass rivalry with that. And of course they have the overall championship, but for their interclass championship as well, as we see Jake Britton on the back of Sizek to get into 2nd place. A bit of contact between them actually as well. That is going to be very dangerous in cars as twitchy as these. They go under the brakes and trying to push forward, and there goes Jake Britton up into 2nd place in the 2 litre class. But that's the thing though, in your own individual championship, you don't really want to get stuck up in a fight with some of the higher classes, because what does it matter to you for your own championship? So that's going to be something on the minds of these guys and how hard they fight between classes. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of cars. I think we had 39 entrants, and yeah, it can get quite busy, as the start proved.
Yeah, 40 starters took the grid, with like I say, Austin Birchfield was the slowest at pre-qualifying. This is a replay of the start because of the sort of the 3x3 grid that we have here. It looks like Timothée might have got a nudge from Jake. Probably have to see maybe an onboard, and then people.
Gee, oh my word, that's messy.
Just Spa things.
Basically, I mean, it's better than tyre calling.
It's yeah, it's still not the worst start to a sim race I've ever seen. McLaren Senna's at Maastricht, but Simichich there in 3rd position. You can see the flags next to their names, so you can identify where they come from if you're not a classic racing colours connoisseur. He's closed right in on the back of the two leaders now, so we might have a three-way scrap for the lead, but there's Nico Hillebrand getting closer as well, just 1.5 seconds off this leading pack as they go through the Master Kink. Just just over 11 minutes, or 10.5 minutes into this race.
Yeah, they're not waiting around to get spicy, are they? Fatsi leads from Klosser, and then, of course, Simičić. And it'd be interesting to see if Hillebrand can get involved. Simičić looking to the right-hand side, so be interesting. We'll give him the inside for the next corner. Let's see. He has managed to just catapult himself in front. Bit of a lock-up as well, just in front. So, yeah, just utilising the slingshot effect. And honestly, at this point, these moves don't mean much. They've still got a long way to go in this race. So, you know, if they can stay close with the slipstream, it'll be a game of chess towards the end of the race. The final sort of, 10, 15, 5 minutes, sort of that sort of area of when you can position your car well enough to be tucked up behind someone on that sort of the last couple of laps.
Yeah, and they will need to make pit stops as well because fuel and tyres are a thing. I mean, these are bias pipe tyres, so they probably last like 3 million years, but fuel will definitely need changing, topping back up, as there's that house where the apex being that bloke's driveway that we were mentioning before, and try not to overcook it on the exit because those telegraph poles are hittable, as well as half the crowd, it would seem. Just using every little bit of inch of track they can. Don't want to get on the power too aggressively on the grass because you just spin out. Goodyear Blimps paid a visit to the track as well. And they're sort of coming over the back end of the circuit now. This is the run from Stavelot towards Blanchimont, which will be coming up very, very shortly here. It'll be the next left-hander they go into, so they'll have to brake here. This is Blanchimont. Again, looks completely different. There's no stands, there's no people. This is Blanchimont, I should say. As they now come around the final little bit. I mean, this is all the same. And there will be a pretty tight chicane in a moment, and then they'll come round towards the old start finish, which was once that little kink, and then where that blue car is would have been the finish line, and then hard on the brakes, the drum brakes in most cases, full of sauce.
You have to get it stopped. You do all that flat out and then have to slam on the brakes for this hairpin of the sauce. So they all manage it pretty well, but it is crazy just how different it is. You look and just go through the years on the track maps and just see how the track evolves. So yeah, it is a long progression, but I wouldn't change anything with Spa at all. Of course, it's a nice nostalgia trip, but yeah, you do love the modern version just a little bit more, at least in my opinion. But yeah, well, those hay bales do move if you do hit them, and well, that could certainly cause a bit of trouble for those behind too.
But no Nico Hillebrand, he was probably trying to move it out the way. But yeah, just while we just see, I see that Timoteanovsky's just set the fastest time in that 5-litre class. Just to give you an idea of who is driving what, we've got Charles Leclerc in the D-Type, Nico Hillebrand in the D-Type, and GP Laps also in the D-Type. Everybody else in the 5-litre class is driving the Ferrari 375. So you can tell the difference between the cars by the fact that the Jag has got the shark fin, if you want to call it that, while the Ferraris are mostly red.
Surprisingly, I honestly wouldn't imagine a Ferrari in red, but hey. Each their own. But yeah, no, Simičić is trying to overtake the Ferrari in front of him of Fassi, get himself into the race lead. Or he might not be, actually, because of how long these straights are. Sitting there slipstream, just saving a bit of fuel, might not actually be too bad of an idea.
Well, we did say before the race started and when they were doing the hot laps and things like that, that the Ferraris might have the advantage here because of the fact that the Jags can't use their braking ability as well as they could at Longford. But we also had the sort of the accident that happened at the start where we got Timothée turnaround and things like that. But these Ferraris appear to be absolutely decimating the field, with Hillebrand just hanging in there at the back of this sort of four-way scrap for the lead.
He is indeed. Here comes Janis Simičić to the left-hand side and trying to catapult himself into the race lead. Should be a fairly easy affair, you have to expect, as Fazzy does not put up much of a fight whatsoever. And there's just no point fighting it this early on in the race at all because, again, as I say, what do you gain from doing it? But, yeah, no, just pressing on, being consistent, trying to settle into rhythm, really. Of course, we were talking about complacency and not comfortable, but it does help just to be into a nice little rhythm and settle into the car as well, because it just makes things a hell of a lot easier, and consistency will be rewarded in a race like this.
Well, they were going into the Master Kink as Simičić took the lead, so I think Enzo Fatti probably backed out of it ever so slightly, because trying to go side by side through what was probably the most feared corner in the world at this time. He probably just wants to make sure that he makes the end of the race as Suipami Costa at the back of this group, getting back in front, in front of Nick Hillebrand at the bottom right-hand corner. This is the 3-litre class, basically going like it's the Talladega 500 at the minute.
Having fun with it, just, you know, so close to each other, just going out there and enjoying themselves. This early on, there's not going to be much field spread, and with, as we say, with the slipstream and things like that, it's going to be tough to break the toe and branch away. A bit of side-by-side action just in front of them as well, but again, none of these will really truly matter until we get at least in towards the second half of the race. You can see Simoncic being practically pushed Bazzi down that back straight. Yeah, no, he's pulling out all the tricks in the book to try and branch away from the likes of Hillebrand and Costa, who's actually been able to be dropped off the podium by Hillebrand and up into P3 for the 111. But yeah, no, he's pulling out all the tricks. This isn't NASCAR. It's you know, complete other side of the world. But hey ho, if it works, it works, I suppose.
Yeah, it's one of the things I do love about R-Factor 2 is how close you can drive to the bumper of the guy in front. You can probably get a cigarette paper in between the two bumpers and not have an issue with it. So as they come through the sort of kink before the sauce, absolutely hard on the brakes, heel and toe in it all the way down. There's actually no requirement to use an 8 shifter or anything like that. You can use flappy paddles if you've got them. You're just not allowed to use things like the onboard traction control and things like that in game. So yeah, they are having to drive somewhat similar to how they would have done back in ye olden days. That's the other thing as well, the pit lanes. Like that, it's just a painted line separating them from the track, and if they're using that as to open up Eau Rouge and Radion, there is the chance that they could go piling into the back of a stationary car in the pit lanes. You can see there's 2 cars out of the race. You can see them in the car park down at the bottom of the hill. There's no garages. You can drive out the garages at most tracks, but they actually have to drive round the back onto the track, so that's where they'll go when they retire. Eduardo Benica here in the Gordini, as Casper Stoltz sets the fastest time in the 3-litre class. Mia Rose 5.5 seconds behind Casper, and Bergier another 5 seconds back from Mia. So very close racing at the minute. Towards the end of Longford, they did start to spread out, but we always had at least something going on. We've definitely got something going on here this afternoon. Benica under pressure from the Mercedes down the hill, just avoiding the car in the pit lane, probably getting some damage fixed. It's been there a while. There's an errant hay bale in the middle of Eau Rouge. Oh, we've hit the hay bales on the exit of Radion. That's not going to be very nice for everybody else coming up behind, because they are going to plough into that if they're not careful. All the cars seem to be okay, probably maybe a little bit of toe damage, a bit of suspension damage if they hit them too hard. But everybody is still, I don't particularly want to see how much of a mess has been left behind at Radion there.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not. It's slightly strange and not going to be a pretty sight. I mean, it depends. Maybe you're a bit sadistic and like seeing crashes at Radion, but hey ho, each their own. Well, we'll see the damage, of course, to the hay bales as well. That's also going to be interesting. This is Liam Dolan in the Aston Martin, correctly named the Anton Marvin for the R-Factor 2. So yeah, well, that is one way to avoid it. As they are dipping the wheels onto the grass, they go through using each bit of the track possible. You can see the 296 looking to the right hand side as well. 2x2 Noah's Ark as they go through the right hander. So yeah, they're being quite elbows out, despite this being really early on around, you know, a very tricky circuit in very tricky cars to sort of handle and throw around. But you know, they're just going out there and having a load of fun with it.
Yeah, Anton Marvin, having quite a famous brother, played in the Shadows during the 50s into the 60s, if you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, they're very elbows out, but they're being quite respectful with it as well. They're not doing anything too silly. You know, they're not trying to lob it into the inside of every corner like you do find in a lot of league racing, open lobby racing, and you know, all the carnage that causes. But I think they know that they're respecting the track, they're respecting the cars. I know that there's people talking about Eau Rouge and Radion and things like that in modern cars. They don't respect it like they do, and that's why we've had so many accidents there over the last couple of years. Particularly the Spa 24 last year, where there was just wipeouts and things like that. But they are, for the most part, still running. Your class leading Hillebrand currently. That's subject to change within the next few minutes or so. Kasper Stolzer leading the 3 litre class. Enzo Fatsi making a move on Jene Simicic, who we have now confirmed is Slovenian, not Slovakian. So apologies to Jene and to the people of Slovenia and Slovakia. I haven't watched enough Fun with Flags with Sheldon Cooper lately. And then we've got Kasper Stolz leading the 3 litre class, the Dane, and we've got a Finn in Kantanen leading the 2 litre class.
Yeah, well, it's nice that we've confirmed the Slovenian thing. I literally, about 2 months ago, just did my geography GCSE, so I should know. But hey, obviously not. It's not done me too well. But no, it's nice to confirm, and of course the flags do help if you know what you're talking about. But we obviously don't. But yeah, well, we won't. That's why we're commentators, not geographers, and
yeah, I didn't do geography GCSE at all, so it would have been O levels back at this time, wouldn't it? As Enzo Fatsi leading the group, as we see that Jake has now come back into the top 5 in the 5 litre class, basically working his way through. And just to point out, if something does happen, if the 2 litre class does flip above the 3 litre class, it usually means that the leader of the 2 litre class is ahead of the guy in the 3 litre class, so that'll be why that happens. As we see a replay, this will be how Nico Hillebrand made it to the front. Looks like he's applying DRS, so the speed of that thing. Maybe a bit of nitro as well down the Master Straight, the Hollowell Straight. He should have that done. Yeah, there we go, just before they enter the Master King, so everybody through there nice and safely.
For now, at least, they've still got another hour and 38 minutes left to go, and many a go through the Master King. So, yeah, well, as we say, there's probably going to be a lot of calamity and a lot of premature ends to this race. We've already had, I think, 2 already, and that is obviously thanks to the carnage that happened at the start, and of course, people just not getting to grips with the circuit too well, getting into their own little tussles. But we're still being treated to a nice, I guess, four-way fight here at the front between Hillebrand, Fazzi, Simicic, and Costa. And despite the Ferrari dominance that we were expecting to happen, of course in these early stages too, as we see actually Fazzi going for the move for the race lead, that Jaguar was giving him a nice little fight up there too.
Yeah, it might have been interesting to see if Jake was able to. Obviously, there was that carnage fest at the first couple of corners. As Nico is coming back, and I think he might actually be streaming this over on his Twitch channel, and he is doing it in a cap and goggles and a polo shirt. He is full on role play in this,
commitment,
and he's probably saying a few unbroadcastable words at the same time, knowing Nico. So it's all a lot of fun to watch, and I'm glad that the Super Serious Esports guys are having a lot of fun as well. Just to let you know what else might be happening along here is that the slowest qualifier in the 2 litre class qualified above 7 or 8 3 litre cars, so that's how well those two classes integrate. As we see Kasper Stolzer from Denmark in the Mercedes 300 SL, just having a nice drive to the shops by the looks of things.
He's he's loving life at the moment. 6.5 seconds clear of Rose in second place. So yeah, no, he's just hasn't looked back, and that gap hasn't really grown much because we said on the first lap that he'd grown it quite quick, but it's sort of been a stalemate since. But you know, even despite that, to have that big of a gap and how much of a slipstream fest this race is expected to be, and how close a lot of the cars between classes are, especially in our 5 litre between the top 4. Yeah, he's doing a great job of just breaking that slipstream and branching away. Getting note from Lewis McGlade that was third place in the 2 litre class is him. And that is, I'd say, very, very false, but each to their own, I suppose. And I'm going to throw him under the bus with that one too. But hour and 35 left to go. We're 25 minutes in. We're not even dipped our toes into the water at this point. There's still so much left to go, and still a lot to unveil. And things like that are going to happen.
Yeah, just as we look at the lead group again, to give you an idea as to how fast Kasper Stolzer was in qualifying, he did a 15 dead. Mia Rose, the Australian, Kasper was 10th overall. Mia was 17th overall with a 4:17.2. So a time nearly 2 full seconds ahead with a gaggle of 2 litres in between the two of them. That's how fast Kasper has been in pre-qualifying, as Enzo Fatsi probably forces Nico Hillebrand into a little bit of a mistake, but Nico keeps the lead as they head back down the hill. So we see some great double vision here, looking backwards from Nico Hillebrand's Jag as they head into Eau Rouge and Radion. Costa dropping off a tiny bit at the back, seems to have lost a tiny bit of pace to them. But they are in a race of their own right now with... but it looks like Timotej Andonovski has got himself back into 5th, fighting with Jake.
A long way off this front 4 fight, though. That is just how, obviously, how poor the start was for Andonovski and for Jake as well, but also how good these guys have been in these opening stages. They just got their heads down, didn't mess around at the start, and just pressed forward and really haven't looked back since. And as I say, still a long way to go, but they're doing a really good job to get underway. And that's that thing, is to get the ball rolling at the start. It really does set the tone for the rest of the race. And the likes of Jake and Andonovski as well, who have got a much tougher task of the rest of this race if they want to succeed and do well. Because, as we say, a circle like this, a 20-second gap, that is absolutely monumental. As Hillebrand is under pressure from Fazzy once more, it's probably going to be a case of just lap by lap them swapping places and then tucking back in. A bit like cycling, really.
Yeah, we saw some of the... well, hopefully they don't end up like those cyclists at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham where the bike ended up in the crowd. That absolutely horrendous crash. Thankfully, nobody was seriously injured in that. But this was the danger of this era of racing. That you can see the cars sliding because they just don't have the grip. The tyres have probably only just got to what can be considered optimal racing temperature, but they didn't have to worry about that back then. It was just get in and go. There was no downforce, as we see a little bit more borderline bump drafting from Enzo on Nico. These two know each other very well. There's just 0.66 of a second at the closest point through the Master Kink. Just trying to avoid bidding it on the exit. I like to think what would happen if someone caught that embankment at the side there. It'd probably end up... It would look like something out of a Tony Hawk game.
You're teasing me now. I want to see it. I want to see it. Someone, please, if your race isn't going too well, just chuck up onto the bank. As you see Fazzy, he's very committed. He's eyeing up that move. That's going to be very sketchy. Even bump drafting, they're going so quick, and I'm sure these cars aren't particularly anything stable. So be tucked up right under, not even the rear wing, just onto the rear bumper of Hillebrand is going to be so sketchy, because all it takes is to clip him at the wrong angle, and Hillebrand is going for a pretty nasty crash.
Yeah, it would be something that the LAPD would be proud of, but I don't think race administration would be very proud of, wiping someone out like that. Martin Bayer in the Gordini, the 202. He is stalking the 209. Like I say, all these cars painted in national colours, or variations thereof. They don't necessarily have to run the national colours of them. They're allowed to run the national colours of the manufacturer. So, like Nico Hillebrand is running a British Racing Green Jag instead of a silver one, given that he's German. You can run the colours of the country your wife's from, or just wherever, as long as you're racing in national colours. As Rhys Gardner sets the fastest time in the 2 litre class, as Enzo Fazzi and Nico Hillebrand still duking it out, getting a bit of drift on. Simoncic, oh, that was very close to that road sign. That does not move.
No, and neither will his car afterwards if he smacks into it, so he's got to be careful. But these cars look like a lot of fun. Obviously not when there's things at stake and an hour 31 left on the clock and you're fighting for a championship, but just to fling around for a bit of fun. They're really getting sideways. It's like one of those cars that obviously you normally talk about how smooth is fast and things like that. You don't really want to come out of a corner sideways, but in cars like these with such low downforce but quite a bit of power, you kind of have to power through the understeer.
Yeah, these cars, like I say, no downforce on them. They are pretty much just... They're just cars, aren't they? I mean, like, they were probably more designed to tackle Le Mans than anywhere else, but Hillebrand trading fastest laps at the minute. I'm just looking up during this time period. These cars are based off 1955 cars. There was a death at Spa, not involving one of these types of cars. There was one at the the 1957 sort of Grand Prix that was sort of not part of the Formula 1 Championship, another one in 57, one in 54, but that was a motorcycle crash. But amazingly, the next sort of high-profile death wasn't until 1960, so they are strangely safe, which is just crazy to think about, because you expect people to be crashing and getting seriously injured and dying left, right, and centre in these things.
I mean, that's probably not too far off the case, but I mean, just look at them. I mean, they're not exactly like the tin cans that, you know, when Formula 1 first started, the people were driving around, but yeah, safety wasn't fantastic back then. So relative to their time, yeah, no, the limited deaths are actually, I don't want to say pretty good, because no death is pretty good, but yeah, the fact that it's not significantly higher is pretty impressive. But yeah, because if you crash, you literally have nothing. Those cars would just crumple, and the driver's completely exposed. You've got goggles and a bit of a, you know, you might as well just have a plastic helmet from Poundland on your head, and you're flinging it around at, you know, what, 140, 150 miles an hour in the Ardennes forest. It's not exactly the safest thing in the world. As you see Beneke looking to the left-hand side, going into the, I believe this is the well, not so straight. I'm not. Yeah, I think so. It is, yeah. Because it just all looks the same around this entire circuit. It's just, again, you look left and you're pretty much in the exact same place.
Well, if we're struggling now, how are we going to get through the Isle of Man? Because yeah, that thing's like 400 miles long. It's like, is that? We'll just guess it as car on the grass, losing a bit of momentum, losing a bit of speed. If you lose a couple of miles an hour down the straight, you're not getting that back. Yeah,
it's all about momentum and just taking, you know, a hop, skip, and a jump through. You have to keep it up. You have to keep your minimum speed up. And it really, for a lot of it, that is a Martin Bayer's car. Looked like it was crabbing through that corner. I'm not entirely sure if that's entirely correct, but yeah, you do have, just drifting it, just going sideways. If in doubt, flat out, mate, just absolutely chuck it through. And yeah, well, at least enjoy yourself. But yeah, he's running in P6. I think that's going to be one singular point if he can stay there. But he certainly wants a little bit more, wants that 5th place too. But you know, it is going to be all about momentum and keeping that up, because as we said, with the advantage of cars that are particularly good in a straight line, that advantage rated. If you lose, you know, you get a bit of a tank slapper coming off the exit of La Source, for example, you're going to lose time all the way down into the next braking zone. So yeah, really not ideal. And just goes to show how precise you have to be when you're trying to, you know, wrestle one of these cars around this track.
This is Martin Bayer in the Gordini chasing down Rajassu in front of him. So this will be a good move if he can pull that off. He's currently on 1 point. He can try and salvage 2, but with just over 33 minutes gone, we're getting through things. Charles Leclerc 19 seconds off the lead right now, so it's all going to be all done in the pit stops, I think, and just hope that something goes wrong with those guys in front of them. So not the race that Timotej Andonovski and also Jake might not want to have. We'll probably get Jake in at the end of the race, given that he's the guy that's put all this on. We'll probably find out what happened to him at the end. Oh my
word. Oh, they don't move, do they?
No, that is suboptimal. As well, that's Bourgier and Seidler out of the race, so that's going to put Rajassu and co back up there. Martin Bayer into 4th place in that class. So as we were saying, just smacks a wishbone into his own face. That's these guys must have been mental. Honestly, and they probably would have been dead in real life, because the crumple zone in these cars is your face.
I mean, if they survive, they get a really good insurance claim, I'm sure. But
no, this is going to need more than that little box at the bottom of the form, I think.
Absolutely, that is.
And there's a lot of F's in chat coming through.
Daniel Costello, our production broadcaster in our area, he was absolutely loving it. He was creasing with laughter. So yeah, no, that is. you have to feel sorry for him, but you can't help but laugh when you see that. And I get what you mean now with those poles. They just, they're really stubborn. They must be really deep down into the ground, because those cars came from about 150 to 0 in about 0.1 of a second. What Jeremy Clarkson said, it's not speed that kills you, it's suddenly coming to a stop.
Sudden deceleration is awful, but we'll probably get a replay of that at some point. What was going through my mind was that moment when, remember when Michael Schumacher hit David Coulthard and Murray Walker just went, oh God! That's one of those moments right there. But yeah, I've got neighbours, so I don't really want to be shouting that because I don't want them to get the wrong idea. But yeah, 70 years probably wouldn't have laughed at that kind of accident, but today we can.
It's sim racing. It's fine. No one's hurt. I mean, maybe a couple of egos and
Just pride.
But yeah,
I hope that wasn't a direct drive either.
Oh no, that might hurt the wrist. Oh yeah.
Britain's out of the race as well, by the looks of things. So I think he's clobbered something at some point. As we see, Jonas Simic in the bottom right-hand corner, proper wheel wrestling. I don't know if he's driving a 1950s sports car or playing a bit of Richard Burns Rally.
I mean, it's a really good game, to be fair, so I wouldn't blame him if he does. But you know he's really wrestling that through. Again, it just goes to show the driving style you have to have in these cars. As we see Fazzy looking to the inside of Hillebrand, going through this very long right-hander, and Hillebrand's done a really good job. That is such a long right-hander, the really long way round of that corner, and he's managed to hang on. And that is just the case. I think it was Nigel Mansell, was it, at the Hungaroring maybe, that just sent it in sideways around the outside of someone. That was a very similar thing of just, you know, using the oversteer to counteract the understeer and just holding the speed up. So yeah, that could be a theme of this race, of just being able to keep your foot in and hold those places.
I think it was on Nelson Piquet, wasn't it? Something like that. It was
it?
Somebody high profile that he did it on, yeah.
I was probably about minus 20 when that race happened, so excuse me.
Yeah, I forget you. Like when you said you've just done your GCSEs, I'm like, oh my god.
Getting old, mate.
Yeah, well. Anyway, Enzo Fazzi, once again, that is definite bump drafting. There was definite contact made there. Just giving him a little bit of a wee push to try and keep him away from... oh, God, no, this is... Yeah. Oh, he hit the sign, then hit the telegraph pole, and there was just nothing that could have been done by the 217 there. Instant escape and instant DNF.
It doesn't take much, and it is literally the smallest of mistakes that can have the most drastic of consequences, and that certainly did just prove it there, which again is a shame. But this is, again, we were saying it's going to be such a race of attrition. Just getting to the end, you might actually score a good couple of points. We saw in the 3-litre class with Rijasu and Bayer after the massive crash in that class too, of how easy you can just bump up a couple of places. And with the point system working how it is, it doesn't take much for, you know, only a couple of people in front of you to crash, and you've got a nice hefty chunk of points in your pocket.
Indeed, as the leaders come through the first couple of corners. Hillebrand, Fazzi, Simic, Costa, and Charles Leclerc. Your top 5 in the 5-litre. Then you got Stolzer, Rose, Rijasu, Linka, and Benica in the 3-litre class, and then Canterden, Mamchak, Falato, Cookie, and Estrella in the 2-litre class there. So everybody's just ignore that bit where it says Leclerc in the pits. It's just the way that things are, because they're using the pit lane to open up turn 1, which is Eau Rouge in this case, using the old style start. Probably had a bit too many people starting on the grid, but it's just the way things go. I don't know how they would have done it in real life. Don't know if they would have used a rolling start at that point, or they would have just lobbed them all on the track and just said, right, off you go. But things happen. People coming through the field. I'm sure Jake's stream is looking pretty good, watching him come back through the field, watching him battle with Timotej Andonovski. Stolzer showing as being in the pit lane. That's been up for a while, so yep, that's definitely a pit stop, because Mia Rose, the Australian, has just taken over the lead of the 3-litre class here.
That's the pit stops coming through then. So this, only 39 minutes into this race, so they're going to have to take a couple of stops here. The fuel doesn't last very long. Of course, Stolz has been by himself using a lot of fuel and things like that, compared to the likes of, I guess, Simic, which relative to their class. Oh, that is sideways on the brakes from Benica going into Wallace the Source, and he's spun it round. He managed to keep it going though, pointing the right way, which is very close. And the 363, lovely stuff. I don't think we have a race in Japan, but certainly these cars would suit it with the way they're going sideways. But again with the pit lane, it is very dodgy. That's making me feel
uneasy, even in a video game.
It's second-hand anxiety. Yeah, you're just like, oof, that's so close. Again, it just gives you that newfound respect for those in real life that managed to do it and come out still breathing.
Imagine the poor blokes working on the car as well. I mean, this is the thing with like safety was an afterthought. They would have been sparking up a fag while getting fuel chucked in the car and all this other flammable material around them, and they're just there, a couple of Marlboros, and off they go again. Maybe another a glass of brandy or something like that. These guys were crazy rather than brave, and that's a hill I will die on. But I would like to see them race at somewhere like Fuji in these cars. It'd be good.
That last sector would be lovely in these cars, just to chuck it in sideways, like especially the last couple of corners with the uphill climb and then crest it off. That'd be nice, but maybe a one-off event or something. But no, I don't think the tracks on the calendar are particularly. Yeah, they're not too bad. Nice historic circuits, which is for a historic championship does fit, and well, certainly Spa has proven to give us a bit of action as well. But yeah, no, still a long way to go. Not even halfway through this race yet, and well, we've seen so much chaos at the moment. We obviously with predictions that we made before the race, the chance of them actually standing are probably slim to none with how quick things can change.
Just flicking through my... Whoa, that's a dust storm ahead. That was Hillebrand wiping out a sign but surviving. 11 DNFs so far I've just had in my ear, and also from Mr. Ian Monroe in the chat, who's keeping an eye on the proceedings. I'm trying to have 2 YouTube chats, the actual broadcast and Discord up all at once to try and give you an idea as to what's going on. So we're basically eyeballing this. Like I say, it's pretty much like they would have done us. Hillebrand's gone a little bit wide and lost 2 positions into La Source. Simicic takes the lead. Fazzy slots in behind, and Hillebrand's going to have to make all those positions back up again. As there's pit stops. Yeah, pit stops for all 3 of them.
Yeah, all 4 of them coming in at the same time too. So yeah, pretty orthodox from them and pretty linear. That'd probably be the theme. So I mean, at least there's no variation between the top 4, which would run the risk of them being a little bit more spread out. Mia Rose is carrying on for quite a while compared to Stoltz, who came in I think a lap or 2 ago. So yeah, no, she's doing a great job of just carrying that car around a little bit more. But yeah, it's nice that the top 4 in the 5-litre class are going to be so close together still for the rest of this race, because with that 4-car train for the race lead going into the sort of the final half of this race and towards the end of that is going to be something to watch.
Every single one of the 5-litre class is in the pit lane. So Costa, Leclerc, Simicic, GP Laps, Jacob. The amount of names that guy has, he's all the pseudonyms that he carries with him. But there we go. There's the 5-litre guys all in, and I think that is Enzo Fazzi leading long before everybody else.
Yeah, he's going to be doing yeah, wow, that is actually a long gap. That's a big gap. He's probably really underfueled the car. Maybe, I'm guessing, to do... I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. It's an interesting strategy. Maybe he saved a little bit more in the first stint, or...
He did say he was only going to pit once in a Discord channel. I can't remember which server it was in, but he said he was only going to pit once. So I think that's him done for the race. So interesting... it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. But he has got out well in the lead versus everybody else.
Nice advantage.
Just got out long before Hillebrand as well, even though his timer is still ticking. He's definitely out to the pit lane.
Yeah, no, well, I said it was going to be pretty linear and they'd stay close together, but obviously not. And yeah, well, that is interesting. Hillebrand, yeah, what's happened to him? Maybe he's, yeah, well, that is just beyond strange to me. Maybe the tower's having a bit of a fit, but either way, yeah, no, it looks like that is actually how it is. Yeah, well, he's actually lost the place to Andonovski. Is Andonovski coming to the pit lane? You said everyone in the 5-litre come in.
Yeah.
So that is genuine
as well.
That is genuine. Andonovski is ahead of Hillebrand. How has he lost that much time?
We'll have to find out afterwards, won't we? Again, this is new for everybody, because when you commentate on the Virtual Endurance Championship or FSR or TCUK, whatever it is, you kind of know the cars and you know what they'll do and what they won't do. And it's like with these, we don't know anything about them, so we're all learning at the same time. So has Enzo Fazzi pulled off a wonder strat as Nico almost buys the farm? He survived. Or has he done a full modern Ferrari strat of bottling it?
Bottling it. That's the most crude and probably best way of putting it, actually. It's harsh truth. Truth hurts, but I mean, we'll find out when the checker flag falls, and whoever crosses the line first, obviously, has not done the old Ferrari strat. But yeah, no, that's the thing though. Strategy going to be so interesting. Not obviously, I'm not too clued up on these cars or how the strategy would work in a race like this, but yeah, no, it's going to be. There's a slight bit of variation with obviously how much fuel loads people are taking on. I thought it'd be just conventional: come in, fill it up, go, come in, fill it up, go. But maybe people are taking a little bit less here and there, just planning their stints out a bit more carefully. Obviously, they know a little bit more than we do in terms of that one, but yeah, relative to their rivals, it might not work out quite the same. And yeah, when you're fighting for a championship, you can't afford strategical blunders like this one, because not only are there not many points on offer, there's also not many races on offer to actually score those points. So you have to be here pretty much round in, round out if you want to do anything in the championship.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, yeah, maybe Enzo saved fuel with all that bump drafting and things like that, but there's also the size of the fuel tanks, and there's the size of how the system works in this thing. You know, there's going to be fuel flow. There is a bit of a BOP with these cars for league racing and things like that, as there often is with these sort of multi-car packs. But it will be interesting to see what Enzo's done here, because he's well ahead of Simoncic, and you've got Hillebrand somehow behind Timotej Andonovski. So I don't know what Timo's done here, but to be that far back and then get out ahead of Hillebrand, it's pretty good going from the North Macedonian.
Not bad at all, as we see Diaz on the back of Rose looking to get themselves up in the second place. And yeah, Stoltz has re-inherited that lead and is
doubled it.
16th. Yeah, he's more than that actually. He was about 2.5 times well, because it was 6 seconds. Yeah, so he's done a really good job and is just dominating this race. In all honesty, of course, again, that could come with a bit of complacency. I'm sure Stoltz isn't one to become complacent or things like that. But when you're going that quickly for this long, mistakes are kind of bound to be made at some point. Let's just hope that they're not too drastic. But as we keep saying time and time again, the margin for error is not very big. All it takes is, a sudden bit of snap, go over a bump at the wrong angle, or approach a bit of traffic or anything of the sort, and straight away that 16-second gap means nothing.
Apparently Hillebrand's having issues with his shifter, so that might be why he's lost a bit of time. Looks like Timo was just driving through the pit lane and that triggered the counter. Andonovski in the D-type, so we've got a bit of D-type on D-type action here. These two have raced against each other in the past, no doubt. Although Hillebrand does a lot more ACC GT stuff at the minute. He did do the virtual Le Mans last year, driving a Porsche for Butler Pal Motorsport. And you've got the likes of Timotej Andonovski driving for a few teams in R Factor 2 land. Drives in the VEC for the racing team. So he knows his endurance. Very quick driver. Kicks up the dust as he cuts a little bit of the corner. So this is one of the things that these esport guys will have probably worked out how to do, is where they can and can't cut the track for a little bit of a performance gain, or just to shorten the track a tiny bit. As Aurelian Hamar, driving the Maserati, fights with Silberwolf down the Master Straight. But Diaz is in the Aston Martin in the pit lane. And as Thibaut Nico Hillebrand, as I'm told by Jason Fuller, there's a lot of swearing.
Understandably. I think maybe emotions do run high, but yeah, well, we'll have to I mean, if things go wrong, you can expect a lot of swearing, of course. Not exactly going to be very family friendly for that case, but yeah, no, still doing, just got to press on really. Even if things go bad, you still got over half the race left to go, just to see what can happen. If you're not completely out of the race, that is. If you are, then yeah, just go and have a nice cup of tea, just try and make up for it. But still waiting for the final couple of pit stops to round out. And yeah, Simoncic, he spent a really long time in the pit lane. Apparently, he's still on track and trying to chase down Fazzy, but yeah, something not particularly right with the timing tower at the moment. So we do apologise for that. This is Andonovski, who certainly knows his way around a track, and as you were saying with esports, they love to just get any little bit that they can, even if it's like a 5 thousandths of a second a lap. That adds up, and to them it's worth it. It's worth just cutting the track here and there, learning those slight, don't want to say necessarily exploits unless it's a certain platform and a certain special event on said platform for 24 hours. But they use any trick in the book that they can get their hands on. Whether it's just use the grass, just going in slightly here to open up the corner a little bit more, cut the track here, as we see, just sending it on the brakes, using this bit of curbing to get the car stopped a little bit quicker. Whatever it is, they love to use it, and they will pretty much without a doubt use it, because that's the level they have to rise themselves to. That's how close and competitive it can get with esports racing, and if they don't, they're just gonna drown in such a deep pool of such competitive drivers. And well, it's pretty magnificent, because to the outside view, it's like, oh, it's only like a tenth of a second here. That's not that much, but at the top level of esports, that's everything. Yeah,
they would. They would paint some embarrassing slogans on the side of the car if it meant they'd go 0.001 of a second faster, and that they do love to really, I wouldn't say exploit or take the mickey, but they basically try and find this. Well, they haven't said I can't do this, and this is why in like the VEC and things like that. If this was a Ginny Allison event, they would not be using the pit lane to extend turn 1. I can tell you that right now. Oh, that's close. Getting caught up behind some slower traffic. There will be... Whoa! That was a Co Brown moment, but just to point out here that... There he's going into the pit lane. That blue flags, as we know in Europe, blue flags mean move over. Well, in Formula 1 they mean move over. In this, though, it is the responsibility of the faster class to navigate the slower class, as it is in any other form of endurance racing. So that slower car was not obliged to move out of the way at all. It's down to Hillebrand and Andonovski to get around themselves. But they're still alive, still racing down the Kemmel Straight. We're approaching the halfway point of this race. We've just gone under the 1 hour 8 mark. I am rubbish at maths. As they go through Lake Carmen. Huge drift from Timothy Andonovski on the exit. Just trying to get himself into the highlight reel. And on their way down towards Burnhamville for, well, another time.
Yeah, just ticking them off. Here you can go. Here we go. Andonovski looking to the right-hand side of Hillebrand. Just going to back out of it, maybe. No, he's sending it. He's committing. Not quite enough in towards this next right-hander, which is probably for the wiser. But yeah, no, they're certainly looking cool while they do it. They're going quick and looking cool, which is probably the perfect combination that you could ask for. And especially in cars like these, they look and sound so nice. And of course, through the scenery of the Ardennes Forest as well here in Belgium, is so picturesque. And yeah, well, there's obviously we talk about what's the best looking sim graphically and things like that. R factor isn't usually up there, but even with that aside, it still looks pretty cool.
Definitely does. Cookie in the pit lane in the 2-litre class. So usually if it's blue, they are in the pits. So in the brackets is the stop time, and then the other time is the time they're actually going through the pit lane. And Andonovski manages to get up the inside just before the Master King, but expect that to flip around again in a bit.
Yeah, everything is provisional at this stage. There's nothing set in stone. With pit strategy, mistakes, pace, massive crashes that we've already seen. Yeah, well, I'm not going to count not happening for the rest of this race. There's still a lot to happen. That's I guess the beauty. We were talking, the boring, cliche, we don't know how it's going to finish thing when we're doing our predictions at the start of this thing. But again, that's as you said, the beauty of racing and sim racing in particular is that we've got all these variables and things to take into account, and it keeps you on your toes, because even if Stoltz is leading by 16 seconds, he can crash on the next corner and bang, straight away it's a lot closer for the race lead, and there's more people in the fight. So there's I guess it's why we love motorsport so much, is that unpredictability through every corner, literally.
Let's see what's going on in the 2-litre class. We've got Voldemir Kotliarski. I hope I've got that pronounced correctly, the Ukrainian. So I hope everything is well where he is, and he's currently 7th in that class, just outside of the the top 6 at the minute. That can all change if Cantaloupe, Mamshak, Filetto, Hammer, or Silverwolf have some sort of mare. But he is being chased by another car. I can't really see what brand it is, so I can't really identify what class that's in. But there's another car ahead of him, so he's slowly catching up. 22 seconds or 22.5 seconds to the next car, so that's not for position directly ahead. And Alessio Filetto, who is behind Mamchak. Again, we see the well, that's not the Italian racing colours. That's a little bit different, but still cool to see. There are racing colours that didn't know existed. There is a spotters guide somewhere on the GP Labs Discord if you want to join that and potentially join in with this for the next round at, which I believe is at the Isle of Man. So maybe you don't want to get involved in that, because the Isle of Man is going to be an experience to watch, to drive, and also to commentate. But he's Alessio Filetto, currently 3rd in his Maserati A6 GCS. Very nice looking car. Just chasing down another Maserati, I think, in the 2-litre class. They are all so it's the Maserati Cup down there, so that must be the best car for that particular class.
Must be, because yeah, it's completely dominated by Maseratis. There's no variation, which is a shame, but if it's the quickest car, it's the quickest car. You've got to use it. You can't blame it. Going to take a little bit of a replay. This is the 296 going through Erosion Rally on, and off you go, mate.
That was probably the best accident he could have had, because if he'd sideswiped that bridge, that would not be pretty.
No, not at all. Oh, that is not very tasty, I'm sure. But yeah, no, probably got off lucky in an unlucky situation. But yeah, well, even obviously we're talking about as we get more modern, cars get faster, safer. As you see Filetto to the inside of Mamchak going down this back straight. We're talking about how, you know, how Blanchimont now, modern days, isn't much of a corner. You go back in time, you go into these cars, it's so much more tricky, and you take it for granted about how easy we have it now. And yeah, these guys really have got a tough ask. It looks simple on paper, you know, it's a couple of straight lines here and there, but as soon as you do get to a corner, it's so tricky to negotiate.
Well, I did do a video around here seeing what would happen if you took a 1990 car and a 2017 car around here, and even in the 1990 car had to brake and drop a gear for Blanchimont as it was back then. So it must have been a very tricky corner, especially if you're carrying that much speed into it, because you've got to keep the speed and the momentum up, and it's a little bit like Cops in a way, where you sort of like don't want to go too slow and scrub off too much speed, because your momentum all the way through to Maggots and Beckett's, or in this case towards the source, is absolutely ruined.
It's just a massive mountain to climb around pretty much any circuit in these cars, and yeah, well, you did that for science, I'm sure, that test, not just for a bit of fun. Absolutely.
And money.
And money, of course. Yeah. That's the biggest motivator. That's why you hate the fact that I'm here. But no, we see Filetto managing to get in front of Mamchak. He's going to come right back at him now down the Kemmel. Refuse to call it straight. It's just down through Kemmel. And there's that actually. No, that's not the 4th place man of Hamar just behind them as well. That's probably just a bit of lap traffic or a faster class and just behind them. But you know, still a couple of good battles. Of course, when we get to the first pit stop, the first it's always going to be really close. Everyone's close together. But then as soon as we get to the pit stops, does sort of spread itself out a bit. So it's nice that we've still got a couple of cars that are nice and close together to give us a bit of action for this sort of middle part of the race, where things do just slightly calm down a bit.
Yeah, everyone's sort of settling in now, where the gaps have sort of opened out, so they know they're not racing the guy ahead, they know they're not racing somebody else, so they can just go into their own race. But as we just approach the 1 hour mark, we've got Fatsi leading from Simic. Just a 2-second gap between them, but then it's another 25 or so back to Charles Leclerc in 3rd, Hillebrand in 4th, where we know he's having issues with his shifter, and then GP Labs Jake is in 5th now, we think, because Honest Election Posters has posted it in the YouTube chat that Costa appears to have binned it at some point. Someone said yes, he did at the bus stop, which doesn't exist on this track. So at some point between Blanchimont and the source, Costa dropped it, and that's his race over.
completely went unnoticed. I wouldn't have known if that person didn't put it in the YouTube chat. But that is a shame for them. That's another Ferrari out, which we were expecting to be so dominant, but has been quite close between both the Ferraris and the Jags. There's Timotei Andonovski back into the pit lane again. That can't be a scheduled stop unless unless it's just registered he's in the pit lane because it's like it's so close to the track. I guess so that makes sense. That's pushing the limit just a little bit.
Trying to cool the tyres down. Anyway, as that's going to lose him a little bit of momentum, and that's going to be the position for Matthias Estrella there, taking the position away from the Ukrainian. That's just now lost that place. Now, would Ukraine have had racing colours in 1955? Or would it be Soviet colours at that point? Answers on a postcard in YouTube chat, please.
Wait, when's this? 1960?
1955, the cars
It would have been Soviet then,
1954, yeah.
Because
so
it was like sort of...
Would the individual countries have...
Because Chernobyl was still Soviet, and that was into the 80s, wasn't it?
This is Costa. Oh, hits the Armco and almost got some air off the bank. And then ghosted and beached. So that's him done and dusted. Shame he didn't get any air off the bank too, because if you're going to go out with style. He's still going, which is no surprise really, because no tyres were off and he could have carried on, but obviously a massive dent in his race. And yeah, again, you've got, I mean, fair play to both GP Labs and Timotei Andonovski to put themselves back into contention, because Andonovski is back into the podium fight, which, you know, after his start, he's fought back and has kept going and capitalised off other people's mistakes, which I guess in that sort of situation is all you really can do. Yeah, it's with the way this race is, and we've seen a couple of biggies, just one mistake, and so in some cases it'll be a case of, right, I'll just stay on track, just drive. If people fall off, people fall off, as we see Kuba Mamchak in third position. So this might actually be... No, this is the battle of second in that class that we're watching. That's another car in behind. I'm trying to figure out who that is. I think that might be the Brazilian racing colours in behind. We saw that on the Discord, people showing off the colours that they've made for their particular cars. Apparently the original Brazilian yellow was a lot lighter than what is on that car, but sort of darkened it off a tiny bit, made it look quite pleasant to look at. You can identify that in the middle of a pack. And I think that might actually be one of the 3-litre cars that's sort of fighting amongst the 2-litre cars. So it's, considering that there's another 1000cc in that car at the back, struggling to keep up there.
Yeah, it is indeed. Well, it's engine size is going to be the biggest thing at the track like this that we have been talking about, because it is just predominantly straights and you're spending a lot of it at full throttle. So you do need the engine size, but still, you know, keeping it sort of honest, I guess, and that is showing through the closeness of both the 2 and the 3-litre classes of how well they can run together. But yeah, Hillebrand still on the back of Andonovski. These two really haven't had enough of each other, so they're still going to want to go at it, but not where Hillebrand would have wanted to be after the pit stop cycles. Maybe he's got something planned, tucked away, ready for the second or third or final stint, whatever it is. Maybe he's got something in pocket and could still win this race, but who knows. But it is strange because we don't actually know what happened to him. Usually when something this drastic happens, we can take a look at it and think, yeah, fair enough, he's sort of had a bit of a had a bit of an issue at some point, but yeah, for him that's not been the case. He's just out of nowhere just dropped down. And we're also getting word that both Dolan and Costa as well have retired from this race, so another 2 bite the dust.
Yeah, it sounds like they might have had a coming together there. We'll try and get our broadcast director. Whoa! He just goes through the. I think they might turn it like ghosty if they're there for a long time. But that was a code brown there for Nico Hillebrand. They were just getting maybe client side issue for those 2 retirements, or at least one of the 2 retirements. We'll see what happened. If it was a crash, we'll queue it up and show you. So we'll see what happened there. The gap between Fatsi and Simičić now under a second, so we'll probably see them doing a bit of bump drafting as Nico gives it a bit of a slide on the exit of Lake Combat towards Bernaville. Andonovski also getting a bit of a drift on as well, so it seems to be the right way to drive around here is to turn the car on the throttle, especially through some of these faster corners. All those images of playing Grand Prix Legends back in the day, four-wheel drifting a Lotus 49 around here, especially through this corner. This is Bernaville, because that was the fastest way to get through. Very nice looking Jag. Kept it in its proper colour as well, green. Although he would have been able to paint it in German silver. The 111. I think it would. Someone did say in chat it was the 111 that hit Andonovski. So there we go. We know who caused that. As we see, just trying to see what other things to talk about on here that we might not have seen. Just going back to the whole thing about the 2 litres versus the 3 litres. The slowest 2 litre time was a 4:19.6 in pre-qualifying. The slowest 3 litre time was a 4:21. So they seem to be able to mix it up pretty well. Or maybe there's just not enough people taking the 3 litre car, so people are just setting a lap. And that was one thing that happened in the pre-qualifying, is that Nico Hillebrand did about 100 and something laps, but he only set 9 valid ones. That's how difficult they were finding it out there.
It is incredibly difficult out there, and that is something that we will always come back to. It's sort of just that default point. This is the 200. Is this Nolan, I think, maybe having a bit... Oh, wow, yeah. I mean, originally he might have gotten away with that. It looked bad, but yeah, as soon as he touched those poles, it just went round, and that tyre was just not staying on that on that suspension arm at all. So unfortunately for him, that again, it can happen so quickly. You can be doing so well, and it can just go all so wrong at the a split second, and just bang, you're gone out of this race, off you go, and that's it. That's your day over. And it just goes to show again how precise you have to be. And Simičić, yeah, I thought he was going to hold it. No, he's not. He's gone straight into the barrier. Has he got a bit of damage to that Ferrari? Maybe not, but he's certainly got a bit of a bruised momentum. Of course, he's going to lose a lot of time to Fazzi, and that could be quite detrimental to his charge for the race win.
Yeah, I was about to say something about because he lost the hitting that fence post, and I mean, this is something that's going to happen in virtually every game that you find there's a weird contact patch on an object. I mean, there was the race all-star battle at Indianapolis. Dario Franchitti hit the wall in just the wrong place where the meshes met, ripped his wheels off and took him out of the race. It's just one of those weird things that happens. But this content is a little bit old in terms of our Factor 2 content. I think it was one of the original tracks that came packaged with the game. I think Simičić is struggling a little bit. I don't know if he was like hitting the handbrake or something to try and get through there, but the car doesn't seem to want to behave like it was doing. But he is still in the race, though. That's the good thing. Is that Andonovski taking another pit stop, or is it's just him driving through 6.8 second drive through compared to the 6.9 one that he had last time. So Hillebrand and Andonovski still battling here for 4th in class, and then GP laps 12.5 behind them by the looks of things. So slowly catching up on them, finding some late pace, but still a 5th place for Jake at the end of this to add to the win that he got at Longford would be pretty good for him.
Yeah, still a couple of points, and with Simičić in 2nd as well, it will, I guess, spice things up in the championship hunt too. Well, of course, we're only 2 rounds in, so I can't talk much about the championship, but it's times like these where you look back towards the end of the season, you look back in hindsight and think, I could have got a couple more points there. What if I didn't make the mistake in the pit stop? I could have got an extra point here. That could be the difference when it comes to the championship. So you still, even though you're not necessarily thinking about the championship and being in the championship hunt, you still have to maximise each and every point that you can get out of this race. But considering his circumstances, considering the fact that he didn't get off to the best start in this race, it has just been damage limitation from here on in, and to recover to be maybe within a shout of getting onto the back Hillebrand and Andonovski towards the end, 12.5 seconds. There's stranger things that have happened. So he's just driving, doing the best he can, got his head down, and most importantly, hasn't really let the mistake get to him. There's a lot of drivers that they've had a crash, they've had an incident, they've seen their race float away from them in a matter of seconds, and they've just given up. But for GP, he's just done everything right, pressed on, and just tried his best from there on out, which is all he can do, really.
Yeah, it's going to be good for Enzo as well if he does win this race, because he didn't finish at Longford. He hit one of the little tyres on the inside of the corner at the pub, and that put him in a wall, and that was his race over. So that was close. Andonovski almost went into that guy's living room, almost hit the corner of that building, and that would have been a big. Probably would have collected Hillebrand as well. So good that those two are still going. But if Fatsy does win, that's 9 points on the board, and that will put him right up there, considering that Timo didn't turn up for the previous race, and Nico also didn't finish at Longford as well. So it's going to shake things up in a big way, and it will be closer than it would be, because it's the old 1950s, 1960s point scoring system. So 9 for a win down to 1 for 6th, even though it was probably in the top 5 back in those days or something like that, instead of the 25-18 that we see in modern Formula 1. So it will create a nice close championship if you don't finish one race but then score well at another.
You got to be consistent. Oh, kicking up a lot of dirt. Oh, that's Hillebrand into the... Oh, my word. That is huge.
That was huge.
Big crash. He's still going into the other side of the track as well. That's race over.
That's Jake back into 4th. We just... Right, don't tell him
extra couple of points.
That. Yep. That's commentator's curse.
Nah, just bad driving.
Massive way.
You asked Lewis McGlade that, it's saying, it's not commentator's curse, just bad driving. But nah, I mean, I guess Andonovski, yeah, talent, lack thereof. No, I mean, I think Andonovski did kick up a bit of dirt. Maybe that got in, obviously obstructed the view of Hillebrand and caused him to, stray a little bit too wide than naturally, because naturally you follow the car as close as you can in front of you, naturally follow their line slightly, and you go a little bit too far and bang. And yeah, that is... Oh, is that Stoltz?
Stoltz.
Oh my word! Oh my word! Stoltz! And oh no, I jinxed this a little bit earlier on as well, didn't I? I said how quickly it can happen. That is Stoltz with this race. Mia Rose is going to inherit the race lead eventually. Wow, it's all kicked off.
Yeah, Mia Rose has just been gifted a race lead. We were talking about one mistake in the lead. I mean, Kasper Stolzer had a huge lead at that point, so we'll have to get a replay of that, because I was doing some moderation on chat and just saw this Danish flag go spinning around. So that's going to be gutting for Stolzer, because he missed the first round at Longford due to illness, and now to crash out of the lead of Spa when he was pretty much on for a certain 9 points. That's going to be, I'm going to use the term, it's suboptimal.
Suboptimal indeed. Not quite ideal. There's better ways to win a race, and better ways to win a championship too. But that's got to hurt. That has got to be one of those ones that genuinely sting. It's just how has that happened? And again, it's so sudden. He probably would have been going for that corner thing. Everything's fine. Snap, bang, and he's like, sweet. It just comes at you so fast. You don't really have time to react to it. In some cases, it's yeah, this is going to end badly. This isn't great. But in some cases, like it has been today, it's just yeah, bang, off you go. And Stoltz especially, he looks so good. He's been pretty much unchallenged, well, entirely unchallenged in this race. And just, yeah, it didn't really look back from the start. This is what happened to Hillebrand going through, just drifted out wide. So did Andonovski, but
followed Timo, didn't he?
Yeah, Andonovski didn't hit the barrier, and Hillebrand, well, not the barrier, the pole, and Hillebrand just went straight into it. Yeah, again, that is 2 major crashes for some 2 top names as well in both this race and the championship as a whole, all coming to blows within this, the span of a couple of minutes, which, yeah, is certainly strange to say the least.
Just trying to see. So Rajasu's now been promoted into second place in the 3 litre. He actually won at Longford, so that's going to be even better for his championship. But if Mia Rose picks up the 9 points for the win, she's going to be in a great position for the rest of the season, provided that she decides she wants to qualify for Isle of Man and the rest of the rounds of the season. But Mia Rose, absolutely rapid, the Australian. So it's all good in terms of, well, it's sort of, we've had 2 name drivers crash out. There's a lot of tyre squeal just coming through my headphones there. I think everything's okay. Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah, so we've got Jake have a bad start and sort of lucked his way up there into 4th position. Mia Rose getting up there into 1st position from what would have been a solid 2nd because of the demise of Kasper Stolzer. But I think that's probably about, what, 14, 15 retirements now over the course of this race. And there is the man who has made this all happen, Richie Axelson, because I struggle to pronounce that last name. Englishman butchers foreign name.
Loud and slow, mate. That's how you go for it.
That's how you go for it. Desmarais.
Or just whack onto Duolingo and go for it.
Yeah, down the back straightaway, as he would call it. But he's 15 and a bit seconds off Andonovski in front. So, but if he just keeps it on track, he's in for a solid 4th. But yeah, there's still just under 45 minutes for Fatsi Simičić or Andonovski to bin it as well. So it's not over yet.
It's not. You've got to be in it to win it, and that's exactly what GB Labs is doing. He's just keeping it going at allegedly placed, waiting for everyone else to just give him the places for free. And yeah, fair enough to ask in the YouTube chat. Leave for 5 minutes and all hell breaks loose. It's like that thing. You're like, okay, it's quieting down a little bit. I can go get a cup of tea. I can go get a drink, or I can go to the toilet for some reason. And then you come back and it's like, wait, what? What's happened here? Hillerand's out. Stoltz's out. What's going on? Rose is leading the race. Yeah, no, it's crazy, and we'll try and give you the action. This is what happened to Stolz. He completely was sideways and just drifted out a little bit too much going in, and that poor person. I hope they have home insurance or something.
Sponsored by Direct Line, yeah. But that was just before Stavolo. So that was that right hand kink just before Stavolo. So that's over the furthest point away from the pit lane as you can get, as we have Andonovski in the pit lane. So that must have been a tactical refuel, short fill maybe before to try and get himself back into it. But that's GP Laps into 3rd position now, and so Fatsi still leading this race by 2 seconds. The gap had dropped under a second at one point. It looks like Fatsi's pulling it back out, but we have to take into account that there might be a little bit of damage on Simičić's car after that whack he took at Blanchimont or something like that, where he's probably damaged the car on the Armco. But we saw in the last race that Simičić didn't fight Jake towards the end of that race. I think it was about 30 seconds, 32.9 seconds the gap was at the end, because he just settled for 2nd place, and that's typically what he does. He is very, very fast, but he also plays the long game, sort of a mixture of your Verstappen and your Prost, so like blindingly quick, but also quite calculated. That gap just hovering around the 2 second mark, and then about another 30 odd seconds as well back to GP Laps, and then you got Andonovski after that pit stop, 35 seconds behind Jake there. Oh, that's 42 seconds off Simičić. Right, gotcha. It's
the interval.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wouldn't be much far off. Yeah, it's not a great recipe. What is a good recipe though is Janis Simičić in sim racing, I guess, is how well he's doing. Yeah, that is. I think that's a little bit of maybe toe-in or camber issue on the steering wheel, because he's holding it sort of slightly to the right going down the straight, so maybe that car is slightly damaged and he's having to nurse it around. He's still maintaining the gap of 1.8 seconds though, so Simičić, as you say, certainly knows his way around a racing circuit, how to negotiate himself, as we said a little bit earlier on, with how he that is closing down very quickly. Fazzy maybe have made a mistake. That gap now approaching under a second for Simičić, so might still actually be within a shout of closing on and getting past Fazzy. But yeah, no, Simičić has probably won everything there is to win, especially on R Factor 2, Formula Sim Racing. Probably up there in the Virtual Endurance Championship as well. So yeah, he's having a bit of fun with it, trying to win everything there is to win, and yeah, he's making a good name for himself. Even if he does go for second and second between Longford and Spa, that's still consistent points. And in a championship that is as unpredictable as this, with people crashing left, right, and centre. Anything can happen. Your championship rival can crash at a moment's notice. It's that consistency that even if you don't win a race, you can still, do really well in the championship just by being consistent. You look to Formula E this year. Stoffel Vandoorne won the championship by only taking one win throughout the entire season, and just by utilising consistency. So maybe that's Simicic's shame, and it still is possible to do well even with just maintaining a second place.
Yeah, Richard Burns did exactly the same thing when he won the World Rally Championship. He only won one rally all year, and he won the championship because McRae and the others just kept crashing. So you can win things and do very well through being consistent, as the 5 litre guys making another pit stop.
Yeah, indeed. And both at the same time. Fazzy came in, well, he jumped a lot of people. He took a really short stop. Let's see if this one's slightly longer this time around. 40 minutes left to go in this race. It should be their final stop if they fill the car to the brim. I don't think anyone's really taken tyres yet at all, because they're really pretty durable on these cars, and they might need to. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see in terms of the pit stop times between Simicic and Fazzy, where they come out relative to each other, and whether Fazzy had to compromise this stop for a slightly shorter first stop, and that is the wonders of strategy.
Yeah, Jake goes into the lead, but in case of when he pits, he'll probably pit on the next lap maybe, because I think the fuel consumption is on 3x, just to make it so that they do have to obviously pit for fuel at least once. So are they making it so it's equal, so they'll just be on fumes as they cross the line, or are they trying to do this tactically? But Fazzy has got out ahead of Simicic, so looking good for the Dutchman so far. So far.
So good. And
we were saying that Hildebrand was on for good points, and then he ended up...
He's not crashed yet.
Inside a telegraph pole, so...
Yeah, big yet at the end of every sentence that we have to say when we big up anyone. It's like, oh yeah, this guy's doing really well, yeah, and bang, oh, brilliant, he's not doing well anymore. So, yeah. But anyway, there's still a lot of people still going, a lot of people that can actually, well, I don't want to say can actually, because that seems really, out of order from me, but still going and keeping that car on track and out of the barrier for the most part. And yeah, I think the main fight for any racing really is amongst those 5 litres, because you look to 3 litres and Mia Rose has got a massive gap over Rujasu, who himself is 10 seconds clear of Beneker and a minute clear of Leduc just behind. So yeah, I think the big fights really are going to be for that fight for the overall race win in the 5 litre.
It is indeed. 22 seconds is the gap between Jay and Fazzy. Jake will have to make another stop. It's a case of when. But we have Andonovski 11 seconds behind Simicic. So anything can change. We've still got 37 minutes remaining. It was Stingray, wasn't it? Anything can happen in the next half hour. Anything can happen in Formula 1, and it usually does. All these other cliche phrases, as we now see. GP laps Jake heading down out of the Master Kink towards Stavelot. This is where Kasper Stoltzer had his accident into this little kink just here. Ended up in the house on the outside. Driving a Jaguar D-Type in the American Navy Blue. Out the other side of Stavelot. Keep the speed up. Should pull away here from the I think that's a Gordini in behind him, so that's yeah, there he goes. It's like hitting the nitrous button. Just pull away, and it should be a nice bit of a gap there. But he looks to be on his own out there.
Just keep going, just be consistent, and he's still got to come into the pit lane as GP, and will of course relinquish this race lead. But while he's got some clear air, he's had clear air pretty much for the whole race anyway. So yeah, just utilise it as best he can and use some pace, because he certainly has pace. He obviously proved it at Longford, and coming in today with pre-qualifying and qualifying, and unfortunately for him the race didn't go to plan at the start. But again, he's just we'll say it time and time again, as a lot of points today have been. It's a race of attrition. You've got to be in it to win it, and even if he comes out of today 4th or 3rd, that's still, considering the circumstances, a really good result to salvage something out of this race.
If we could get like a reminder of the championship standings on screen, just to remind everybody watching wherever they are around the world and however they are watching around the world. As we see a couple more drivers in 3 and 2 litre class enter the pit lane. Ah, that's beautiful. So we've got Jake there on 9 points. That he's probably not going to make 9 points today. Simičić is probably going to score another 6 points. So if we assume that Jake finishes this race in 3rd position, that's 9 plus 4, whatever that is, and then you're probably getting another 6. So it's going to be very, very tight at the top. Enzo Fazzi is going to jump up onto 9 points, so that can put him probably about 4th in the standings or something like that. So, well, it's probably just to give you an idea of where everything sits and how many points they score and things like that. So there's the 5 litre Drivers' Championship standings, which is basically the 5 guys that finished in the top 5 from the first race, because you can't obviously count any races before that because it was the first round of the season. So you can see the rest of the calendar there as well. Isle of Man is definitely next, then Dunrod, the Targa Florio, Isle of Man and Targa Florio. No clue how we're getting through that one, Zach. But Le Mans is the one I'm looking forward to. I can't wait to watch that on the old layout. So no chicanes, no Porsche curves, no Ford chicane. It's basically pretty much flat out it's a flat out triangle almost, pretty much like Spa. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and hopefully no blown engines down that Mulsanne, which is going to be about 4 miles long, and the heavy braking zone for Mulsanne corner itself right at the end.
Lovely jubbly, can't wait for that one. But we have got a really good calendar lined up. I can't know Dunrod and Targa very well, if at all. Isle of Man as well is a bit shaky for me because I didn't decide to indulge myself into a lot of motorsports. I've not been around for very long. Let's put it down that way. But 2 hours on the clock for each and every single one of them, and can't wait. There's towards the end of the year, 17th of December, we get to Le Mans. There's it's something to look forward to end and round off the year on, and just have a bit, again, just to try and enjoy yourself, have a bit of fun. It should be, with how close the 5 litres and the rest of the classes are. It should actually, hopefully, fingers crossed, be a really good championship fight for that one as well. And with how well Le Mans lends itself to slipstream and overtaking and things like that, it could actually come down right to the wire, which I'm sure everyone at home is looking forward to.
Yeah, just to point something out here, Mamchak has retired from 3rd place in the 2 litre class, so we'll have to get a replay of that one, as that happened while we were going through the championship standings. And we've got so we've just seen Mia Rose, she's in the pit lane. Cantonen's in the pit lane for the 2 litre and 3 litre class leaders there. As you can see, 2 litre has swapped with 3 litre because the 2 litre leader is now ahead of. So Canton is basically ahead of Mia Rose. That's basically how that's happened. So once Mia gets back in front, you'd think they'll swap back over. So it's just a way of doing things there. So we'll try and get a replay of Mamchak's accident queued up for you, if it is indeed an accident and not a bit of disco fever. We've got Rajasu and Benica in the pit lane as well. So final pit stops for those guys. It should just be a straight drive for the next half hour or so.
Should be indeed. We're about 3/4 of the way through this race. It's been pretty close for a lot of it, and we're getting Casper Stoltz into the YouTube chat now. So he's not quite too bitter about crashing out. He's he's accepted it. He's come in to try and enjoy and maybe cheer some other people on for a good race today, especially those in the 5 litres who are very, very close indeed, and trying to have a good fight over the course of the next half an hour, the final half an hour to round off the 2 hours of Spa that we have got today. So yeah, I think for the most part, of course, now naturally it's died down just a little bit, which is to be expected. But that first stint, those 4 cars, bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper, you can't beat things like that.
Yeah, and Jake will put together a highlight reel for those that have come in late and things like that. We'll show some highlights towards the end if the whole DVR type thing has worked properly. But like you say, with these top drivers like Casper, like Enzo, like Yerne, like Timo, like Nico, they've come in, and usually when these sorts of things happen, you do get the esports guys come in, as Jake's now in the pit lane. They come in and they try hard. They take it far too seriously. They do their setup trickery and things like that, as there's now a yellow flag in Sector 1 and in Sector 3, but that's quickly been cleared. And it sort of ruins the vibe of it, but they've come in, they're here to have fun, they are having fun, and we've actually got some decent racing out of it at the end of it. So here is the replay of the burgundy minty aquafresh car getting a bit of a spin, and
Ouch.
yeah, how are you going to explain that one to the owner of that Beetle?
You don't. You leave a note, say sorry, don't leave your information, and run. Take the license plate off the car and sprint.
Here's a box of Quality Street, sorry.
Yeah, here's a $5, still out of my pocket. Or just write a note, pretend you're a kid that's just dropped his bike on the car. That's all you can do. You know, maybe feel bad about it. It's one of those tall unicycles they use in the circus. It's quite heavy. It's limited edition and things like that. It does pack a bit of a punch, and the kid's quite big as well. When he fell off the bike, went through the window. That's exactly what it is. So you make the owner feel bad, make them feel guilty, just gaslight them into not pressing any charges. But no, the thing is though, he almost had the car saved as well. He flung it around a couple of times and was on the brakes. Like, it's not like one of those like we saw with Stoltz, with how it was just so close, bang, out. He spun for a good while and was very close to keeping that car in control. I think it was just the grass and the slight uphill section that just sent the car out of it. So close, but so far at the same time.
Yeah, that's the thing with these sort of older... I mean, I do the stewarding for a BTCC league, and they were racing at Thruxton last week, and one of the drivers got biffed off at Goodwood Corner. He actually ended up in the trees right off on the other side of the field. Is the runoff area there. So these older tracks, they got a lot of runoff. It's just that it's a lot less safe runoff compared to what you see on modern tracks, as we're now on board with Jane Simičić going through the Master Kink. I get anxious on their behalf every time I watch him go through. It's just crazy. Up towards Malmedy, that is Enzo Fazzi in front. You can see that the car is wobbling very slightly as we see the sort of rear view of Enzo Eagle between the lap traffic. And yeah, that car is looking a bit second-hand for Simičić, but to be holding that gap at 2 seconds, is that Enzo managing the gap, or is it Simičić just being very good at what he does? I'm going to say yes to that.
Bit of both, yeah. Just yes. I mean, Simičić is very good. Fazzi, of course, is still being very, very consistent to maintain that gap as he throws the needle through the middle of a couple of lap cars too. That can always be a bit sketchy. But no, yeah, so a slightly worse for wear car. That's certainly not how it racked out of the showroom by any means, or out of the factory, I suppose. As he goes through again, using all the track, even with a slightly damaged car, even though he's going to be losing a few tenths a lap because of that damage, he's still no stranger to just being like, yeah, no, there's track there, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, he's probably was it some of the stuff that you see with some of these like top level F1 drivers. You see like so and so's got a bit of a problem with the graining on their tyres or the blistering on their tyres, but then they figure out how to drive around it. You see Hamilton's done it a few times, and Verstappen's done it a few times where they've got a problem with the car, but they've driven around it and still been able to put the times in. And Simičić is one of those drivers that can do that. As we find out that it's the reason that Casper stacked it in such I mean, it was a brilliant crash. 9.9 from the Romanian judge. It was because his motherboard updater decided it was. Yeah, I've had iTunes pop up with an update halfway through a race before, and it's just not fun. So it's just one of those things that happens. Those technical things that can happen in sim racing, because none of these sims seem to. Remember, like the good old days of like Grand Prix 3 and Grand Prix 4, where you had like an engine failure or a transmission failure or water leak and things like that. Things like that, they are these kinds of failures. So it's just one of those things that happens. So I'm sure Casper will be back and be fast enough for the Isle of Man to actually get to race and put some points on the board. So unlucky for him. But yeah, Charles Leclerc. It's always funny, that name, to go and set the fastest lap leader class, as he is 9.5 seconds behind Simičić, with GP laps 43.5 in turn behind Andonovski.
I wouldn't be surprised if he could actually get onto the back of Simičić by the end of this race. Of course, it's going to be a massive ask, But with Simicic's damage, of course, as you know correctly say, he's trying his best to drive around the issues. You know, if you've got an issue, you try and exploit it. You know, you're stuck in a slightly higher gear, you drive in such a way that you keeps the rev up and you keep the momentum going to try and limit that damage and sort of things like that. But yeah, it's still going to be hampering him silly if that gap is being maintained to Fazzy. But if Andonovski can put in more laps like that and close the gap, all it takes is a couple of mistakes here and there for the likes of Simicic and Fazzy to bring him right back into the mix. This is a battle for position here for P7. This is Hrrc Gardiner on the back of the 304 for P7, and very, very close even after the last about an hour and a half of straight racing. They are separated by virtually nothing, and while it's not for points paying positions, it's certainly a nice bit of pride just to finish one extra place up.
Yeah, we've got getting some oofs and ahs in our ears from broadcaster. There's those two hay bales just sitting in the middle of the track, but it's almost like flying through those pylons at like the Reno air races because of the way they are. They just use the racing line to take you through it, but you know, get a little bit offline. That's going to be a big accident if those things are still deciding that they want to be solid. But I think that might be another position just ahead of them. That red and white car there. Can't see the number on it from this particular broadcast position, but still Hrrc Gardiner chasing down 7th place in class, and I think he's going to take it here. Gets the slipstream, gets out of it. Japanese racing colours by the looks of things on that car. But I think the giant circle on the front gives it away. But yeah, that's position. And I think that's Timotej Andonovski closing in his Jag in behind them.
It is indeed. He needs to clear these guys pretty quickly, then start his assault. That on Simicic and Fazzy maybe, if he can do that. But hopefully just got to wait for a straight, then put the foot down. Those 5 litres don't wait around when you put those foot down, especially relative to the 3 and the 2 litres especially. But you can see the 3-4, the Japanese car is going to come right back at him. There comes Andonovski just saying, like, all right, you lads have fun, I'm on my way. Gardiner is going to give him a nice run for P7. It'll be the outside line for the next corner, but surely that's to no avail. Has to tuck him behind, and indeed thinks better of it. Yeah, that's the thing. A little bit earlier on, we were talking with a 4 or 5 car train for the race. The dust being kicked up. Hopefully that's not Andonovski in the trees. Fingers crossed. But no, with the 4 car train that we had earlier on, with how moves matter so little. If you do it like a little bit earlier on in the lap, it doesn't actually really matter where you do it on the lap. If you make an overtake, the car behind can just tuck back in, and then the next straight back in the slipstream, and will come right back at you. So it is just that, just constantly tap and tail and just swapping positions all the time when you're locked in such a close fight.
It's almost like watching oval racing in a way, isn't it? See that overtake that they've done there isn't for position on the 294, so probably lapped it's a different class. So it's all the. I mean, it's still to watch cars be close together on track, even if it is for position or not. It's still good to see them navigate each other without wiping each other out, which is something that can easily happen. But I think all the retirements we've seen so far have been self-inflicted. They've not been, you know, people coming together through a silly move or anything like that. So the driving standards across this and Longford, yes, people have crashed, but the driving standards in general have just been very, very high. It has been mistakes that have caused crashes rather than stupidity, which is what we want to see.
It's better to do it on your own accord rather than going for something silly and taking someone else out with you. So yeah, I guess that is slightly better. It's the lesser of two evils in some respects. But this is Mia Rose, over a minute clear of Rujasu, who is in 2nd place in the same class. And yeah, they have done a great job, of course, with Kasper Stoltz out of the race. There's, you know, someone has to inherit the race lead, and they've done exactly that. And again, they're just doing everything right. They're doing all the right things, ticking all the right boxes to still lead this race. And yeah, I mean, after Stoltz had his crash, I thought it would be quite close, but Rujasu really hasn't had much of an answer for Rose's pace. And you look at how Rose was compared to Stoltz, I think it just puts into perspective of how quick Stoltz and puts into perspective how well of a job Kasper was doing. This is the 2-litre class leader fighting with Rose. While it's not for position by any means, he's still putting up a good fight. Is Kantonen.
Yeah, he's going to have to be very careful, because if he wipes out the leader of another class to try and boost his position on track. It's just not going to look good on stream, and it's not going to look good for him in general. But I don't know, because as we saw at the beginning of the race, there was that itty bitty little pile up going into Hrrc and Radion at the very start of the race. So maybe Hrrc got caught up in that and lost out as a result, and Rose maybe able to jump ahead. But having seen Mia race across other leagues in our Factor 2, and from what people have been saying in chat, we know that she is quick. So it's probably maybe a little bit of both. But to be fair to her, to turn up for her first race of the league, I think she only joined the Discord probably at the beginning of the week or something like that. A bit of a slide on the exit of a corner, to be leading this race now. Admittedly took advantage of the fact that Andonovski's out.
Oh no. We're going to get a replay as soon as we can, but that is a shame, because we potentially could have seen him chase after Simoncic. But yeah, that is Kantonen getting a bit sideways out of the exit of La Source, trying to stay with me, Rose, as best he can. And yeah, these 3 and 2 liter cars can really rack up well amongst each other, and it comes down slightly to driver skill and being able to match the car in front as much, because the difference in the engine sizes isn't so drastic. Yes, there'll be slight differences, but it's not incredibly different. So yeah, but the main talking point really is Leclerc. He's had some sort of stinker. We'll take a look at what actually happened, but it'll be really disheartening if it was all by himself.
Well, we're about to find out. This is Master Kink.
Oh, off you go.
On the... Oh! Do a barrel roll. That's not the way to lose it. That's not. It is embarrassing when you do lose. I would rather be hit or hit somebody else than lose.
You
it
have
on
an
my
excuse.
Own. You have an excuse then. It's like, but it's just one of those things that happen. He hasn't had the best race today. I'm sure he'll come back. He is rapid. He's a very good driver. Like I say, one of the staples of our Factor 2 esports and things like that. So yeah, Timothée will be back. It'll be a bit disheartening, but Isle of Man should be a great round to come back and maybe score some points.
Yeah, you've always got to bounce back, and the next opportunity. Yes, it's a shame, but what can you do about it? It was a strange crash as well. It went once, then went twice, then it got to that point of no return, and he just definitely knew in his heart that he was like, yeah, do my best. I can counter steer, but I can slam on the brakes. This car is not cooperating by any means, and yeah, well, still, it's not completely doom and gloom. We still got a fight for the race lead between Fazzy and Simoncic in the final 17 minutes of this race. Certainly getting towards the closing stages. Can Simoncic pull something out of the bag, to nurse this damage, get onto the back of Fazzy, and of course make that move stick is going to be the most important thing, because it's one thing to catch, it's one thing to get past, but it's another thing to stay in front as well, especially with how competitive these two have been and just down each other's throats for the last hour and 43 minutes.
Yeah, Fazzy seems to have either backed off a tiny bit, or Simoncic has found more in the car, having driven it around for the last 20 minutes or so. But it's like going back to the whole thing with Andonovski. You've got cars. These cars don't have any downforce. It's all mechanical. So once the car is going, it's pretty much gone. It's not like the downforce will take back over and push you back into the ground and give you the more grip. It's just sort of like you're only ever losing it. So you do get to that point of no return a lot quicker. And just saving it. If you try to flip the car back the other way, the momentum's going to go with you, and just going to make it worse and worse and worse until you're off. So it is just one of those things. But like I say, he'll be back. But to see Simoncic now half a second off Fazzy, so maybe Simoncic has found something, or Fazzy's just lost a little bit of pace. But we're going to be in for a cracking end to this race. With it looks like just 3 runners left in the 5 litre class. It looks like that Jake is guaranteed a 3rd position at this rate.
He's a minute back, but he's in 3rd place, so he'll still be taking a good chunk of points out of this race. Jonas Simoncic looking to the right-hand side. He is certainly eyeing up the move now in prime slipstream range of Fazzy in front of him. and going through the next right-hander, just trying to stay as close as possible. Fazzy goes in a bit too deep, and that's the psychological warfare I think that Simičić needs to play, is to try and bait a mistake out of Fazzy and then see a gap open through that he can then stretch an advantage out of, kill Fazzy's momentum, and then try and drive away and get out of the slipstream range. Because, you know, saying time and time again, with you get through, the car behind tucks into the slipstream and will be counter-attacked straight away. So you need to pick your moments well, you need to position your car well enough to limit the chance of a counter-attack.
It'll be a lot more tactical at this track than it would be compared to another track, because of the fact that it is pretty much, I mean, like we've seen the bump drafting, it's basically an oval, there's slipstreaming and things like that. So, I mean, we've seen it before with you know, Formula 1 and series that use DRS and things like that, that drivers will back out of the slipstream going into Origin Radion, as Simičić is up the inside now towards the next right-hander. I think this is just going up towards Blanchimont. Yep, it is. So through Blanchimont there. So not a place we've seen many overtakes, to be honest, as they come round towards the what is now the start-finish line of the... well, maybe not. I called it a bit too early. I think that is still Blanchimont. That my track map a little bit out of date. I did download the 1966 version, but as I was, I've probably lost my train of thought now. But what was I saying? I don't know. No clue.
Great commentators.
We are not good at this job.
For a job that requires talking and actually knowing what you're talking about, yeah, we're doing a fantastic job of that one. And to answer the question in chat, this is, I believe off the top of my head, the 1954. Is that the cars or the track?
Cars are 54, track is 66.
There you go, Corvette John, there's your answer.
If you do have questions in chat, do ask them. We'll answer them on the stream as well. So I did put a poll up. Who will win? I'll end the poll. Where has my poll gone? Oh, there it is. I asked who will win. 42% have said Fazzy, 34% have said someone else, and 22% have said Simičić. That's, they're not very confident in Simičić winning this race, but he's in the lead right now. So that was what I was talking about, the slipstream. People backing out into Eau Rouge and Radion to get the run up the Kemmel Straight, to not lose the downforce off the dirty air and things like that. So it may be a case of timing the slipstream correctly, but Simičić has got that lead up to nearly a second with a damaged car. So it might be Simičić's race to win, but it's also Simičić's race to lose.
Very philosophical of you there. I mean, he's doing everything right in order to try and consolidate this race win. Fazzy just needs to stay within the slipstream range. And Ian Albuquerque voted for Simičić when the poll went up. So, I mean, that would be impressive. That would be some impressive, you know, prediction. As Simičić just gets it very sideways off the exit of that corner, nearly onto the grass. In fact, was onto the grass, kicked some dust up into Fazzy's face. But yeah, this is going to be a crucial lap for Simičić. If he can get out of the slipstream range and be under no threat, it will be a relatively easy final sort of 10 minutes of this race. If Fazzy can stay there and keep hammering on the pressure, it's going to be a slightly more difficult ordeal.
The gap's now over a second, so Simičić does appear to have found something over Enzo Fazzy in behind, but the top three is looking how we did expect it to. The yellow flag comes out in Sector 2. We were expecting the Ferraris to be better here. Obviously, we did have the carnage at turns 1 and 2, which may have upset that a little bit slightly, but for the two Ferraris to be leading, you might think that Enzo might just be settling for second at this point, because of, you know, he needs to get some points on the board for the championship, and then you've got Jake about 65 seconds, a minute and a bit behind Enzo. So it is probably, this might be how it ends, but Simičić finding some late race pace. And Diaz has now does not finished from the race, so we'll cue that one up as the Aston Martin retires. Pretty much a Gordini Cup now in Maserati Cup. Oh, sorry, the Maseratis have now taken the lead on track. Kantonen is now ahead of Mia Rose is out.
Oh,
Another race leader in the 3 litre class is out of the race. Rujasu inherits the lead in 3 litre. This is... Stick with this, because anything... We've still got 10.5 minutes left. Anything else that can happen here. So, yeah, we've just lost Mia Rose and Diaz from the 3 litre class standings. So, Rujasu is now the second person in this race. Well, third person to lead the 3 litre class, but is the second person to inherit the 3 litre class lead.
yeah, that is... I mean, for Stoltz, it's like, you know, it happened, you know, with like a decent amount of time left to go. For Mia Rose, it's with 10 minutes left to go. You're nearly at the end. I guess it is the most grueling 10 minutes of the entire race, because you're so close. You can almost see it. And then it can all come undone at a moment's notice, and that's exactly what's happened to me, Rose. But Rujasu is going to be counting his lucky stars or something, because to inherit that race lead from over a minute back, he's going to be absolutely chuffed. And now there's only 3 people left. We've got Rujasu, Benica, and Ladouche, who will round off the podium. So similar to the 5 litre class, they've only got 3 people left racing. So if you can get to the end, again, you've got to be in it to win it, but you can still pick yourself up a nice... you know, a nice podium. And get him heard, her internet dropped, which
Australian internet.
That is harsh. But as you said, it's the equivalent of an engine blowout, a gearbox issue, fuel injector, whatever it is. It's the equivalent of a mechanical issue in real life, and yeah, that's racing.
Yeah, we'll just have to see what happened to Diaz then, because that'll be... let's see what caused that one. So we know that Mia's was... related to her internet rather than losing it, which, you know, I'd take that. I've retired, but it wasn't my fault. But to have the internet drop out less than 10 minutes before the end of a race that you were certain to win, that's going to hit pretty hard. But we get the replay. This will be Diaz and the 294. So does he have the same issue that this is Stavla? No, Stavla. Oh, I think that's the exit of Malmedy. So, yeah, just caught it in the wrong place. Ripped that right rear off. Trip to the pub.
Yeah, we're seeing it's the same sort of mistake, just at different points of the track, of people just, you know, just drifting off to the outer skirts of the circuit, and then it's just that thing of point of no return. You get onto the grass, the car goes once, the car goes, you know, twice. Maybe you can hold it if it's sort of a low speed, but it's such a high speed, which you are at for the majority of this lap. You get onto the grass, the car becomes unstable, and it's just not coming back. No matter how hard you try, the car just won't ever cooperate. And yeah, we have lost a fair chunk of people in this race. I mean, the 2 litre guys have done really well. The Maserati Cup has kept it quite clean in DNF respect, as opposed to the 5 and 3 litres, which have seen a fair bit of carnage and chaos.
Yeah, the 2 litres seem to be doing. They seem to have. I think it's just RNG at this point, isn't it? With the 2 litres just seem to have lucked out on it, whereas the 3 litres seem to have dropped it. But to see the 2 litres. So Kantonen, just to remind people of why it's the wrong way around if you're just joining, Kantonen is ahead of Rujasu. That's why it says 5 litre, 2 litre, 3 litre. If Kantonen stacks it and then Rujasu takes the position on track, it's done by overall position basically than class position. So at the minute, a 2 litre car is leading a 3 litre car. But we have had the discussions before about, let me just bring up my pre-qualifying things. So, when looking at it earlier, Kasper Stolzer did a 4:15 in pre-qualifying. Mia Rose did a 4:17. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 2 litre cars in between Kasper and Mia. So they can hang with each other, but you think on a power circuit, the 3 litre class cars should have been a lot further ahead, but Jake Britton was the fastest 2 litre car in qualifying, as we see everyone's favourite sandwich filling, Sal Army, in the 2 litre class, chasing a car that has supposedly got more engine power.
It's the magic of salami, I suppose. Pressing forward and trying to get past, I suppose. I mean, it's a nice bit of an ego boost to beat a car that's supposedly meant to be a little bit quicker. And yeah, those in chat, Axe, who's saying how you can get exhausted after just playing a game for like 10-15 minutes. These guys are going hours on end and are still looking really tip-top shape. That's the thing though, is that fatigue can get to these guys while they are accustomed to endurance racing, sitting at their rig hot, sweating, especially if those in the UK, very hot and sweaty, mentally draining too if you're having to focus, especially today at Spa in cars like these. You do get mentally drained, and it's that fatigue that then starts to tail off towards the end of a race, where you start to feel a little bit drowsy, and then mistakes start to creep in. So it is a skill in of itself, just the endurance of coping with an endurance race.
Yeah, I've always tended to avoid endurance racing because, ironically, I don't have the endurance. But I did the Bathurst 12-hour in iRacing last year, and with about half an hour left in the race, I had to bang in qualifying laps and somehow lap a second and a bit faster than the guy ahead to get the podium. And eventually, I remember feeling like the next 2 or 3 days just being absolutely ruined because it's I mean, using the Jimmy Broadbent quote that the cars are fake but the racing is real, but you're staring pretty much at a computer screen for hours and hours on end, and you do have like blue light filters, and you can get special glasses with blue light filters and stuff like that, but even staring at a computer screen could just be very draining, and you're trying to control a fake racing car and sort of indulge in you being a racing driver one day, and it can be it's a very mentally draining. And some of these guys, I know that Simoncic and Enzo are using direct drive wheels as well, which will simulate the fact that these cars don't have power steering. They will be very, very drained towards the end, but it's a different kind of drain. It's more of a mental drain than the physical drain that you would get from. Because imagine driving a real Formula One car and driving a real LMP car, things like that. Yeah, you will be pretty exhausted by the end of it.
Of course, you can't one-to-ones, simulate the G-forces and the real-life forces. You can get close. When I did the Rocket Racing Star F4 esports competition, we had the motion platform sims. I think it was direct drive wheels as well, really realistic pedals, and it was a tough thing. You slam on the brakes and the seatbelts completely just constrict around your chest. It was a lot of fun. They are ridiculous, and it took me we had a couple of practice sessions just to get used to the sims. It took me at least halfway through the first one just to know how hard I can press the brake pedal without having just becoming concave around my chest because of how hard you were having to press the brake pedal to actually go very quick. And again, as sim racing progresses, as companies become more innovative with their hardware and things like that, you will get more physical endurance required. But yeah, it's not wrong in saying about how of course the mental side of things as well, that obviously comes in real life too, but it's one of those things that transfer into sim racing, and there's a many thing that can cross over from sim racing to real world, and of course real world back into sim racing, and that mental just durability of being able to cope with a championship battle, or knowing when to go for a move, when not to go for a move, the patience, the morale. It was so easy for GP to just give up on lap 1, but no, he's kept pressing on, and even though he's only over 70 seconds off the race lead, he's still managing to salvage P3 because everyone else around him is DNF'd. And it's just that mental durability that you need to progressively get better with time and experience.
Yeah, there is a lot more to it than just a little bit more to it than just a video game. But we can just see down there on the bottom of the 3-litre time that we've lost Ledouche. We've lost the American driver. And the cars are now on their final lap. Simoncic, second lead from Enzo Fatsa. You'd think that's how it's going to end unless something really does, befall the leaders. You can see them there. That's just going through. Looks like the the exit of Malmedy maybe. I don't recognise. Sorry, they're just coming out of Lakeum. They're just going towards Burnhamville. So they are on their last lap. 55 seconds on the clock. So they are nowhere near they barely started the lap. So on the exit of Burnhamville, the one away to Enzo Fatsi, Dutch flag there next to his name, chasing down the Slovenian event of Jone Simičić. You can hear some banging and barging in the background. We'll see if we can grab a quick replay of the Ledouche DNF before this is over, considering they're only about, what, a quarter of the lap in. So this race has flown by. Usually with in these kinds of races, that they tend to drag on a bit once the initial melee of the first sort of 5 or 6 laps has ended. But there's always been something going on in these 2 races, even if the field has been very spread out. You can see, Jake is now 71 seconds behind Fatsy, so he's probably just taking it easy and just making sure he finishes right now. Enzo is slowly catching on to the back of Simičić, but I don't know if he's left it too late, as that is it. The clock has ticked over to 0 seconds, and I've just had a bottle of Pepsi put into my hand. So, so it looks like it will be Simičić, Fatsy, and GP Laps on the podium, because they're the only 3 finishers in that class. As you see the onboard from Enzo in the bottom right-hand corner. I do love the split screen. It does look very, very swish. Once again, shout out to a shout out to GP Laps for putting on the event, and also the fine folk at Simply Race in Milton Keynes for doing all the broadcasts and the graphics and all that stuff. It all looks very, very swish, very professional. Enzo almost binning it on the exit of the Master Kink there as they head up towards Stavolo for the final time.
Only one more time to get through. Do not let it end now, because that would be the most grueling thing, is to have it end like this. But you can see Fazzy is going to be absolutely on the limit, trying to maybe get himself back into the race lead in the final moments of what has been a very close and tight race amongst both Simičić and Fazzy. But not long left to go. It's looking very unlikely that he's going to be able to go for an almighty send for P1 though.
It's been the fight for first place has been a lot closer than it was in the previous round at Longford, but like I say, always something been going on. We've always had something to talk about. Well, I always had something to talk about last time out, but we've both, and myself and Zach, have had something to talk about in this one, as Simičić starting to show off now with a bit of drifting towards the end. But still, Enzo is getting closer and closer, and he might be able to have maybe a last-minute lunge into La Source. I'm just going to press X to doubt on that one. He's not close enough. No, so Jone Simičić comes through La Source for the final time. And gets a kick of oversteer on the exit. It's going to be the closest finish of the season. Then again, we've only had 2 races this season. Jone Simičić is going to take the win from Enzo Fatsy. And then we're just going to have to wait a bit longer for GP Laps to finish. Checkered flag. Slovenian takes the victory. I think the 2... the split screen and the other thing were a bit out of sync, but we'll just pretend. But they are the 2 finishers. Well, the first 2 finishers. Just going to wait for everybody else to come across the line. Rajasu in the 3-litre class. Where is he? He's just coming down the hill, so he will take the win once again in 3-litre, so that he is the only double winner thus far this season. And I think Kantonen will have already taken the flag ahead of him, because Kantonen was ahead on track. The gap between Kantonen and Folletto in that 2-litre class, a whopping 51 seconds, while Rajasu takes his win in class just about 8 seconds ahead of Beninka. So we'll just wait for everybody else to come across the line. We'll wait for certain drivers to get themselves into the interview waiting chat room. We could bring them in as this Oscari Kantonen, Alberto Oscari, we'll call him, to make it more period correct. Where is he on track? Is he still racing? He looks to be still racing. Or is he just doing a fast in-lap? Because who would want to do an in-lap on this one? I think he is actually still racing. Does he even know that the race is over?
Does he not?
I've lost track of where he is on. Where is that? Is that? I need a landmark. That's Burnhamville, so he has finished. I don't think he's realised that the race is over.
Usually it's the other way around. Usually the winning driver thinks, oh no, the race is already done a lap early. But no, he's still going. He's
fair play.
Loving life. Yeah, no, it's better to be doubly sure.
Maybe he just really needs a wee.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep, we'll get some highlights up now. We'll see what we've managed to DVR for you. Also, if you did come did come into the race later. We'll have some cool things to show you. It's probably just crashes, I think, but we'll probably get a good look at that start. Yeah, this isn't Longford, this is Spa, so this is well, this will be the big crash. The 217, painted in French colours. Oh, this is the start. A few cars got away very slowly, and that's Timotej Andonovski getting turned round. Fair play to him for coming through the field, but he's 198 getting turned round, so that'll be an early retirement. Everybody just getting concertinaed up, damage everywhere, hay bales everywhere. Not the most optimal of starts. They were told to be very careful going through there. This is the four-way fight that we have for the lead between Hillebrand, Fatsi, and Simoncic, with Costa in behind them, sort of dropping off towards the end. He did lead a few laps at the start of this race, dropped back and ultimately didn't finish. That was a great piece of racing between the three of them. R-Factor 2 sort of stalwarts, if you will, and this was that was the big crash between the 217 ending that race. That was a big crash, probably the biggest one we saw all afternoon. Mercedes ending up in the Red River. It's probably taking the old original loop through that section. This is Costa going through Blanchimont. This will be where he hit the wall and just ended up ghosting through. Apologies if there are any bits of glitches. It's the replay rather than the actual game. Just got that stuck. He did continue after that and ultimately sort of called it quits a little bit later on. He's this will be Nico Hillebrand just getting stuck on that fence post there. Fatsi and Simoncic. This is Hillebrand again. Oh, that was where he. Okay, so that was Hillebrand hitting the telegraph pole following. That was good baiting by Andonovski there to basically wipe out Nico, but that's an unfortunate finish again for Nico Hillebrand. No points this season. Big crash there for Kasper Stolzer, the Dane, wiping out as his computer decided to tell him that he needed to update his motherboard drivers at that particular point on the track. Another off here. Bit of a slide, tried to correct it. The momentum just kicked the rear end out. And that's going to be a call to direct line to get that Volkswagen Beetle fixed. What else do we have on the old highlights? This will be Andonovski retiring from the race. Dropped it on the grass. Fishtailed it. Almost got sent to the moon. And then ended up in a bit of the scenery that the game probably doesn't want you to enter. And that was his race done. Another crash, just showing how challenging these cars are to drive, as Robert Paulson has correctly identified. Just dropped it on the grass, hit the fence post, and that's it. Race over. I think that's the last little bit of the race. So there is your top three. Hrrc Simoncic taking the win, his first win of the season from Enzo Fatsi, who has managed to recover to second place after his DNF in the first round, and GP Laps makes it another podium. So Hrrc and Jake making it on the podium for 2 races in a row, and we'll grab them in for an interview very, very shortly. So what did you make of that, Zach? How was that for your first race of the season?
Well, I mean, it was a race. It was one full of action in one form or another, whether it was the four-way fight for the race lead a little bit earlier on, or whether it was for with all the crashes and the unpredictability of who actually comes out on top, because you feel secure, you're led into that false sense of security as a race leader to build up that gap, and then it can all come. It really just unfolded and dropped off in a split second. But yeah, no, well done to those that managed to get to the end, and those, of course, that managed to do it in good time too. And of course, Hrrc Simoncic, who managed to take the win today, because yeah, it's impressive and crucial really for his championship to really make a statement versus his championship rivals after only finishing second last time out at Longford.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get some live championship standings updates on that. I don't know if we can import the results and things like that, but we'll definitely have the results. I'm sure Jake will tweet out the results and put them on his Discord and his social media. And we've actually got some people waiting in the interview room. Who have we got? We've got Timo, and I think we've got Enzo as well. So we'll bring one of the two in and see what happens with the interview and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what they thought of it.
Great insight to see it from a driver's perspective as well, because we only see it from top down, don't we? We get a very, just not a very broad view, and it's completely different, because for a lot of them it's like seems like a very easy affair, but you go down to their level and it's like, nah, I was battling a lot of different things. My window was open, I had seagulls outside my window annoying me for the whole race, and you're opened up to a completely different perspective from the driver's view. So yeah, these interviews are always a nice little insight.
We've got Hrrc in there as well. Hope Jake pops his head in. Probably get him in first to see what he thought, but it's always good to hear from the winner and from Enzo as well after his disappointment at Longford. Just looking at my other screen right now to see what's what. Interesting to see what Mia thought of it. So, Jake's in the chat. There we go. Interview waiting. We can bring him in a moment. Usually get him out because who wants to listen to Jake speak? Oh, he's in the channel. I hope he didn't hear that. Yeah, he's in the channel. Hey, Jake.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry about that.
So, was that how was that comeback drive for you?
It was an interesting one. What a mess of a start we had. I'm sure I'll have to see the replays. I haven't seen any replays of it yet, but wild start. I got knocked into, didn't get damaged somehow, and then just had a really nice country drive through the Belgian countryside for the rest of the race. It's a pretty quiet race on my front, but a fun one.
Managed to look into a podium. Matt, what was going through your mind when you saw the likes of Nico and Timo and those guys drop off, and you just saw your position go from 5th, 4th, and now into 3rd to get you the maximum amount of points you could have taken?
If I'm honest, it was kind of my strategy for the whole time. I knew I didn't have the outright pace or the consistency to do super fast laps the whole race. So I was kind of banking on some folks having some incidents, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised with just once we got going how good the racing was overall, and that folks were able to put on a good show. Charles and Nico and Hrrc and Enzo, Juanmi, they were all so fast. So it really, I guess, could have been any of this.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. What we noticed is that there's always been something going on. So it's not like there's one or two OP drivers and everybody else. The BOP seems all right. The talent spread seems all right. How do you think it's all going to be for Isle of Man, which is going to be a totally different event where it's going to be a traditional time trial rather than an actual proper full-on race?
Yeah, Isle of Man, I think it's going to be one of the first big time trial races that we haven't found too many examples of this. So a lot of unknowns, both in conducting an event, but also just how it's going to be for these cars. The BOP's been interesting, BOP and the fact that we're not changing it to balance it, but just, in qualifying for this race, it seemed a lot like the Jag was going to run away with it again, but clearly the driving ability and consistency with the Ferrari, Enzo and Hrrc were able to put on a bit of a clinic, weren't they?
Yeah, they are annoyingly quick, aren't they? So we'll let you get back to your stream and probably crack open a couple of beers, and I suppose it'd be nearly lunchtime for you over there in Boston. So we'll let you get back to things and let yourself have a chilled out end to your stream. So thanks for putting this on again, and we'll see you at the Isle of Man hopefully.
See you at the Isle of Man.
All right, that was Jake for GP Laps, the man who made every second of this possible. Who have we got next, Dan? We got Enzo next. Oh, this is gonna be hell. We're bringing Enzo Fazzi, who finished 2nd in the Ferrari, which would be good for him considering he didn't finish at Longford. So we bring in the man who works for Hoisingveld Engineering. Enzo, how you doing?
Hello. All right.
As enthusiastic as ever. How does it feel to get some points on the board after having that unfortunate accident at Longford last time out?
Yeah, that was exactly how I was driving most of the time when I was leading. I think I didn't want to push. I knew Hrrc was slightly faster, but I didn't want to push any harder and lose it. So I was just driving at 98, 99%. I figured that once Jenny would catch up, I would just not have to struggle too much to stay in his draft, but I was wrong, unfortunately.
He's got that annoying habit of doing that, hasn't he? Just getting in front and pulling away when you think you've got him. So at the end, was it just a case of just staying on track and scoring points as opposed to trying and battling for them?
No, once he got past, he got a little bit lucky with the back marker, like pulling him away from me. So I lost the draft, and then the last 3 laps or something, I pushed quite hard, and I caught back up a little bit, but it wasn't enough to really get a good toe from him and go for a move. In hindsight, I should have just. In hindsight, I should have just pushed harder all the whole time.
Yeah. But how was it when it was the 4 of you fighting for the lead? Was there ever a moment where you thought, I'm about to die here, or was it just a case of these guys and you were able to just get on with it?
Well, Nico kept going off, and I was just waiting for a big one to happen. I preferred the bits of driving on my own, setting my own pace, and not having to deal with with other cars around.
Yeah, so it's always good to finish and to not get taken out. So how do you think it's going to be for Isle of Man next time out, with the fact that it's going to be almost an old school rally rather than an actual race?
Well, given that we start by number, I'm starting behind GP laps based on all the previous pre-qualies, and then no one else in front of me. So I think that's a good starting point to just not have anyone in my way except for GP laps.
And just finish probably.
Well, no, just push and
miles
not have to deal with traffic.
That's also a good point. Yeah, so
I know the track, so I hope I'm up to speed right away.
That's always good to know. So I'll let you cool off, crack open a beer or whatever, and let you have a good end to your evening.
Yep, thanks for having me.
No worries.
Yep.
Enzo Fazzi there, who finished second and bagged himself a decent 6 points. We'll probably bring in Yerne for an interview, because he did win and he's get his thoughts on things. Yep, and getting the win for the Ferrari. So we've had the Ferrari winner race, and we've had the Jag winner race. So Yerne Simicic, congratulations on the win. How was that for an afternoon's racing?
Thank you. To be honest, it was pretty stressful at some points, because like 1 or 2 times I thought I have just DNF'd, but for whatever reason the car was not too damaged. Like one time I went from 3rd to 2nd gear, but I found my 4th gear, and then there was a wall and I almost rolled the car. But there was some damage, but somehow the place was still there, so that was pretty insane.
How bad was it after you hit the wall? Was it just a little bit of suspension, or was it just something you could drive around?
Yeah, I think slightly bent steering, but no drag, which was pretty funny given that the car was like dark blue all around in the HUD. So yeah, it was pretty intense. And
you managed to sort of, I think you have actually taken the lead of the championship. What do you think to the rest of the season going forward with Isle of Man coming up next, and some of these other absolute monsters of circuits that Jake's picked for the rest of the season?
Well, it's apparent now that Jaguars kind of have pace advantage in mostly every kind of circuit. So let's see what happens in the future. But yeah, even today, even with crazy lap times and crazy pushing in qualifying, I could not really come close to the pole in the end. And then in the race, even when Nicolas had the incident at the start, he closed up on us on the Ferraris and overtook us. So I thought, well, that's it for the race. But somehow in the end, 2 Ferraris 1 minute ahead of the first Jaguar. So pretty nice. And well, for Isle of Man, I'm afraid I'll have to skip it because of Le Mans Virtual. But well, that's a good reason to skip it, I guess. But for the next races, I hope to be, I plan to be here and hope to enjoy all of them. It's awesome championship. It's dream come true. Like for almost a decade, I dreamt of racing the historic cars around Old Spa. And like for some laps in the end today, I just had the biggest smile on my face. Of course, I was winning or leading at least, but then knowing that for so long I wanted a proper race, on such historic track, and we finally have it. So yeah, amazing.
It's good to see the esport guys having a break from the super serious stuff and having themselves a bit of fun. So congratulations on the win. It's a shame we won't see you at the Isle of Man, but I'm sure you'll be back for another round, and the best of luck for Le Mans when that comes up. Just don't beat Rocket, please, because we don't want that. But thank you very much, Yone, for taking part, and I'm sure I'll see you at some point in the near future.
Thank you, Aiden.
No worries. Cool. Do we have anybody else, Dan, or are we... That's it. Cool. Fantastic stuff. I think that... So get the thank yous out of the way. So obviously thank you to GP Labs for putting this on. Thank you to Simply Race for supporting and putting on this beautiful stream. And also thank you to Zach for being here and keeping me company and making sure that I don't end up talking rubbish to myself.
You're doing that anyway. I was just here to listen to it and make fun of it. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure to be alongside you, mate. Yeah, while it was a really good race, great second round to the season. Well done to all our winners and everyone that even just made it to the end. To be fair, it was an absolute cracker. I do hope everyone at home enjoyed it as well. We held a decent amount of viewers as well. So yeah, thank you to everyone for joining in. Thanks to all the support that's been coming in for this series too. But yeah, no, I think that covers everything, Aiden.
Yeah, it does. We just got to work out how we're going to drag ourselves through the Isle of Man, because I'm going to have to sit and just memorize some old onboards from the TT, just to figure out where everything is. Maybe call my uncle up because he lives over there, and maybe get him to do a track walk or something like that. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone that stopped by. I know there was a donation on my stream, so thank you very much to that. Thank you to the bots as well that have jumped in and tried to cause carnage. But thank you to everybody that's stuck with it. Everybody seems to have had a good time watching it, and there's going to be plenty more races starting with the Isle of Man later on. So until next time, I've been Aidan Millward, he's been Zach Sweeney, you've been brilliant, and we'll see you for the next round in a few weeks' time. So until then, goodbye.